The sunny spring day in Redwood Gardens did not portend any trouble. This suburb had always been considered an oasis of tranquility and carefree living, a place where children could freely play on the well-kept lawns, and parents could fearlessly let them walk to school alone. Huge houses with white fences, manicured gardens, and friendly neighbors created an illusion of absolute safety. That's why no one paid much attention to 13-year-old Emily, who decided to take a walk to the local park that day. She was walking along the familiar path, enjoying the warm breeze and the scent of blooming cherry trees. The girl could not know that she had been watched for a long time. She could not feel the predatory gaze that followed her every step from the dark window of one of those perfect houses. This is where the most terrifying truth lies. Monsters do not hide under the bed or in dark alleys. They live among us, wear suits, smile at neighbors, and wait for the right moment. And today, one of them decided it was time to hunt. April Millsap was born on January 2nd, 2000. Until the summer of 2014, she lived with her family in Armada, a small town located in the state of Michigan, USA. April was a friendly and charming 14-year-old girl. She was in high school, in the upper grades. April had no siblings. When April was 6, her parents divorced. Her father entered into a relationship with another man named David. April and her stepfather quickly got along and maintained a warm relationship. April was very cheerful and had a wonderful sense of humor, which constantly delighted her family. Her positive outlook on life allowed her to surround herself with many friends who only rallied around April. She was a creative person, loved to draw, led an active lifestyle, and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. Despite her young age, she seemed older than her years. At 14, April had already become quite independent and walked her dog alone. She loved spending time with friends, but was also close to her family. April had a boyfriend named Austin, who was a year older. They went to school together and met there. At the time of the described events, they had been dating for about a year. In 2014, the population of Armada was about 1,700 people. The place turned out to be safe, ideal for a family to live and raise children. Everyone knew each other well, literally by face. However, as life experience shows, such circumstances make places like this very attractive to criminals. Here they strike rarely, but it causes real panic. July 24th, 2014. Summer vacation was in full swing. On this day, April was not going to go anywhere or gather noisy companies. Instead, she slept until noon and then spent the whole day at the computer, communicating with friends and playing games. Around 6 p.m., April decided to go for a walk with her dog named Penny. She often took her pet with her, including with friends and her boyfriend Austin. The same thing happened this time. April chose one of the usual walking routes that she took quite often, just to get some fresh air. Usually, such walks lasted no more than an hour. April did not take the animal with her for a long time. Her mother was waiting for her at home calmly. However, even after an hour and a half had passed, April still did not appear. Jennifer tried to call her daughter and sent several text messages. But instead of answering the call, it redirected her to voicemail, and the messages remained unread. The woman began to worry and called her daughter's boyfriend Austin, hoping they were together. When the young man mentioned that he had not seen his girlfriend all day and had only communicated with her on the internet, Jennifer started to really panic. She continued to call April's school friends, but no one knew where she might be. Less than half an hour had passed. There was a knock at the door. Jennifer hoped it was her daughter returning from the walk and opened it with relief. But in reality, Austin was standing on the doorstep with his friend. According to him, they both came to make sure April was okay. But he also could not find April. The guy looked alarmed and showed Jennifer the message he received from April at 6:28. In fact, it was about 40 minutes after she left the house to walk the dog. Despite the fact that Austin had previously claimed that he had not received any messages from his girlfriend, he now slightly changed his version. The guy said that either he didn't notice it right away, or he was out of the network coverage area before that. But as soon as he managed to get in touch, he received the message with a long delay. According to him, it had a very alarming content. A short phrase, "Someone tried to kidnap me." Therefore, he became worried and went to look for her. Jennifer took these words seriously and immediately called her husband David at work. He panicked and rushed home to search for April together with Austin, his friend, and his wife. They all knew the routes April used to take well. They split up to cover more territory and several trails April could have taken at once. Jennifer called the police, and they also joined the search for the missing traveler. Soon the missing person was found. According to a man and woman who were jogging on one of the trails, around 8:20 p.m., they came across a dog. The animal had a leash, but no one was following it. The woman tried to take the dog by the leash, but it behaved very excitedly. The dog began to run away from them, stopping as if it wanted to show something. The couple followed the animal. The dog dived into a thick bush, and behind it appeared the body of a girl. It was an area densely overgrown with vegetation in a bloody ravine. Later, the girl was identified as 14-year-old April Millsap. However, it was not easy to do this. By the time her loved ones reached this place, law enforcement officers were already working there. Employees of law enforcement agencies from other regions, who clearly had greater capabilities, were immediately involved in the investigation. The fact is that there were only 2 police officers in Armada who were not prepared for such work and had no relevant experience. Crimes occurred extremely rarely here, so a couple of employees were quite enough to counter local thieves. But not this time. None of the police officers had ever dealt with violent murders. Given the virtually non-existent resources for the investigation, the sheriff immediately turned to more competent authorities working in the county. April was found at the bottom of the ravine, lying on her back. Her shoes were removed and thrown a few meters from the body. Clothes and underwear were pulled down, which clearly indicated a sexual motive for the crime. However, further analysis showed that April was never raped. Detectives suggested that such an attempt took place, but April apparently desperately resisted and ruined the attacker's plans. Or someone scared him off, perhaps the dog or a passerby. One way or another, the girl was brutally beaten. She had bruises all over her body, from defensive wounds to her face. It was so disfigured, actually crushed. The coroner was able to identify at least 48 separate injuries, a significant portion of which were concentrated in the face and neck area. The victim was covered in clotted blood. The coroner found traces of neck compression. However, they were not characteristic of the classic method of strangulation with bare hands or foreign objects. Her face and neck had strange prints. During the analysis, it was possible to understand that all these were shoe tread marks. So the criminal was trampling and walking on her. The forensic expert noted in his conclusion that April was actually trampled to death. Marks remained on the head and neck that resembled the shape of the sole of a large sneaker. Given the nature of the wounds, we were clearly talking about a tall man. In addition, the coroner found that the execution lasted more than 10 minutes, and April died in terrible agony. At this stage, it was difficult to identify the victim. It was precisely because of the nature of the injuries that the face became unrecognizable. Only relatives who were looking for the traveler at the time, when law enforcement officers were already working there, were able to recognize her by her clothes and jewelry. It was impossible to tell who was lying in front of them by the face. This shocked her loved ones, especially her mother. From the very beginning, the parents, stepfather, boyfriend, and his friend were taken to the police station for questioning. They had to talk with them in order to form a circle of probable suspects, to clarify the latest events in the victim's life. The father and stepfather were excluded from this list rather quickly, after which the police became interested in the murdered girl's boyfriend, Austin. The officers immediately had suspicions when the young man began to say that the relationship with his beloved had recently been difficult. They often quarreled, and the couple was actually on the verge of breaking up. Shortly before the murder, they quarreled again. Austin's second suspicious discovery was the message April sent shortly before the massacre. She wrote to her boyfriend that someone tried to kidnap her, but he simply ignored such a frightening message from April. However, Austin himself insisted that he could not do this, since the message arrived with a delay, and he did not see it. Apparently, some kind of failure occurred. It was delivered with a long delay. In the detective's opinion, the guy reacted very sluggishly after receiving the message. He did not report this to the police, but simply went to look for her. According to Austin, he was still offended by his girlfriend, and he considered this message an attempt to manipulate. The young man thought that she was trying to provoke his interest and concern so that he would be the first to go for reconciliation. He did not realize that everything was so serious. As for the quarrel, Austin insisted that April's behavior was incomprehensible. The last conflict arose out of the blue. He still could not say exactly what caused the differences between them and blamed April for it. All this only reinforced the suspicions of the detectives, because the guy could have a motive for the attack. In most cases, violence is committed by partners. The officers decided to detain him longer and asked him to tell how the schoolboy's day went, in all details, in order to analyze his movements, as well as a possible alibi. Austin said that around 4 p.m., he met with his friend to help bring a TV into the house. After that, they went to the nearest McDonald's to have a snack. In the end, the young man's words were verified because he really appeared on the cafe's CCTV cameras at the specified time. This happened around 6:30. Just a few minutes after the alarming message about the kidnapping attempt was sent, it became obvious that the young man could not have participated in the murder in any way. He could not be the killer, so it was decided to take the victim's mobile phone for analysis, hoping that it would provide more information. It was hoped that April could have received a message from the stalker who was hunting her. But the victim's mobile phone could not be found at the murder scene. Detectives speculated that the killer had taken it with him, turned it off so it couldn't be tracked, and dumped it elsewhere. In search of the phone and other evidence, forensic experts began to thoroughly examine the entire trail that April was supposed to have taken, but to no avail. Law enforcement officers with specially trained dogs, and even the FBI were involved in this. After almost a day of searching, it seemed all in vain, but the efforts paid off. The very next day, about a kilometer from the scene of the massacre, they found the girl's mobile phone, which was immediately sent for examination to the forensic laboratory. The victim's mobile phone provided interesting information. In particular, it was found out that she actively communicated at school with a young man named Roger. He was known for his unpleasant character and often got into trouble. But during the check, the guy was also excluded from the list of suspects. He had a confirmed alibi. On the same day, several people came to the department who pointed to a suspicious motorcycle and its driver. These people saw April when the schoolgirl was walking the dog on the trail around 6:30. According to them, she was not alone. At that time, she was walking with an adult man, much older, who was pushing his motorcycle with his hands. They were strolling and, it seems, just talking. Then people thought it was April's father. He did not arouse any suspicion and behaved calmly. April also did not seem frightened. But now, rethinking the situation, doubts arose about this man. None of the victim's relatives and acquaintances could recognize him by description. He was clearly unfamiliar to April until that moment. Judging by the description of the witnesses, the meeting took place approximately at the time when April wrote to her boyfriend about the probable kidnapping attempt. Therefore, suspicions about this man were growing. There were few motorcyclists in this city, so he immediately attracted the attention of local residents. Moreover, the motorcycle itself was very unusual, a rare blue and white color. The orientation turned out to be accurate. This made it possible Just 3 days after the murder of the girl, on April 27, 2014, to find a motorcycle that exactly matched the description. It was parked in the driveway of one of the local houses. When the police arrived there, the vehicle was still near the house. They approached the man who was working in the garden, and he recalled that it was not his motorcycle. The bike actually belonged to his 32-year-old friend named James Van Callis. He lived in the neighboring town of Goodell's, located about 30 kilometers from Armada. This information was confirmed. On November 28th, officers met with the motorcycle owner. They decided to talk to him and clarify how he spent the day when April was killed. From the very beginning, James willingly cooperated with the police. James was ready to answer any questions. He recalled that during this period he was at the house of his friend in Armada, and he confirmed his words. But this alibi seemed unreliable to the authorities, because the witness who confirmed the words was a friend, quite capable of covering up the criminal. In addition, there were minor discrepancies regarding the time. The man was asked for the shoes in which he walked that day. He provided a pair of white sneakers, but the tread did not match the marks left on the victim's body. There were no blood stains on these sneakers. Suspicions arose that these were not the right shoes. After that, the detectives decided to learn more about James in order to exclude him from the list of possible murderers. He had a series of convictions, but not for violent crimes. He had charges of breaking and entering a house, as well as for non-payment of alimony. The robberies occurred in 2005 and 2006. But when considering this man's criminal past, the police found something much more terrifying. His father, named James Van Callis Sr., was a registered offender prone to sexual assaults. During this period, both men lived in the same family house. As it turned out, the elder was accused of sexual harassment of a minor child who had barely turned 13 at the time of the harassment. It was assumed that both men could be involved in criminal episodes. However, the focus was on the son, since witnesses saw a middle-aged man. He was the one recognized by eyewitnesses. Searches were conducted in their house. It turned out that both were growing forbidden plants on their property. The quantity was so large that they were arrested and charged with drug distribution. This made it possible to protect the public from potential killers and continue the investigation without the risk of them fleeing the state. The police checked absolutely all the shoes found in the men's house, but none of the treads matched the marks on the dead girl's body. Numerous DNA analyses were also carried out on clothing, but no matches with April's traces could be found either. Nevertheless, the forensic experts who examined the motorcycle were sure that shortly before the police took it for analysis, it had been thoroughly washed. Moreover, with the use of strong cleaning agents, it was believed that this could be an attempt to wash away evidence, and quite successful at that, since no traces remained. The detective's theory was quickly confirmed when James's girlfriend, named Crystal, contacted the department. She recalled that on the day of April's murder, she returned home and found James cleaning his shoes, motorcycle, and helmet. He did it so thoroughly and used such strong disinfectants that she suspected something was wrong. The marks on April's head resembled helmet marks. Apparently, James used it during the murder. The woman also reported that in the afternoon he drove to the neighboring city, where the victim of the massacre lived, to his brother. She described the pair of sneakers he was wearing. They were his favorite black and white Air Jordan sneakers. They did not match the ones he handed over to the detectives when he first met with them. Crystal also said that after that night, she never saw that pair of shoes again. Probably, the killer got rid of his favorite shoes, realizing that he would not be able to wash off all the traces. The woman described her relationship with James in detail to the police. According to her, he was very cruel and prone to violence. She recently felt like a hostage and the property of a man. James controlled absolutely all aspects of her life. He even forbade her to leave the house when he could not accompany her. From the very beginning, she did not trust him, but was afraid that he would kill her if she went to the police. Now that the criminal's family had been detained, she was able to speak without restrictions. According to his own confession, which he made to his beloved, James was cleaning his things because he got them dirty with engine oil while repairing his bike. But she did not believe him. The police needed to prove that the criminal was wearing the shoes Crystal was talking about at all. They managed to find photos on the man's social network page where he was wearing sneakers identical to the description. Of course, James got rid of the pair he was wearing on the day of the murder. But this did not prevent the police from finding and purchasing exactly the same ones and comparing the tread pattern with the marks on the victim's body. Forensic experts immediately found a clear match. April Millsap was trampled to death in exactly the same sneakers that James had purchased about a year before the attack. During a check of the criminal's computer, it was possible to find confirmation of suspicions. He was clearly interested in girls much younger than him. Even more valuable information was provided by April's mobile phone after analysis in the FBI laboratory. As it turned out, she had a fitness app installed that tracked speed of movement, steps, heart rate, and other parameters. Shortly after sending the alarming message to her boyfriend Austin, she sped up significantly, as if trying to escape from someone. Apparently, James Van Callis drove up to her on his motorcycle and offered something, after which April sent a message to her boyfriend about an attempted kidnapping. At the same moment, she accelerated to get away from the pursuer. Just a few minutes after that, the fitness app recorded a multiple increase in activity. The movements of the phone were chaotic and excessively fast. This lasted for 10 to 15 minutes. Obviously, this is how the moment of the schoolgirl's struggle for her life was recorded, which, unfortunately, she lost. A few minutes after that, the criminal reached his vehicle with the stolen phone. Now the app showed a speed of about 20 kilometers per hour. It was maintained until the very moment when the phone was thrown a kilometer from the scene of the attack on April. There were several surveillance cameras on the biker's route, and the police managed to record him. It was the same motorcycle, and 32-year-old James Van Callis Jr. The geolocation of his mobile phone confirmed that at the time of the attack, he was not at his friend's house, but near the crime scene. Now no one had any doubts about his involvement in the murder. At this stage, the prosecutor's office had sufficient grounds to bring charges of April's murder and start a court battle. However, there was a problem, since no direct evidence could be found. The police did not have DNA that would link the criminal and the victim. Of course, against this background, the lawyers could effectively refer to the indirectness of the evidence provided. No matter how hard the forensic experts tried, they could not find the victim's blood on the criminal's belongings, equipment, and helmet. He thoroughly cleaned everything and got rid of all things. Obviously, the man was very experienced in these matters. In the end, the prosecutor's office decided to go all in. Despite the indirectness of the evidence provided, there was too much of it. It was believed that this would be enough to convince the jury of James's guilt. In October 2014, 3 months after the crime was completed, the man was charged. The trial was scheduled for early 2016. The prosecution believed that he attacked the passerby because of a refusal of intimacy. For a long time, he had been searching the internet for various methods of seduction, trying to find out how to interest a much younger girl, especially a minor. But obviously, all these tips did not work. Unfortunately for the victim, the man could not accept the refusal, so he attacked April. The defense, as expected, tried to convince the jury that the prosecution had no irrefutable evidence of James's guilt, and the entire tactic of the prosecutor's office was built only on indirect evidence. The criminal insisted on his innocence, but all this looked unconvincing. The lawyer's last attempt was to note that the defendant had not previously been involved in any serious crime. Fortunately, this was not enough to acquit James. After deliberating for several hours, the jury unanimously found him guilty of attempted kidnapping, rape, and premeditated murder. As a result, James Van Callis Jr. was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. April Millsap's mother spoke at length during the sentencing. The woman was satisfied with the court's decision and the fact that the criminal would never be released. She was shocked that a child could die at the hands of an adult man just because he was refused. His actions and intentions were criminal in nature from the very beginning, but the cruelty was incomparable. Despite this, James did not admit his guilt and did not repent of anything. He continued to insist that he did not commit this crime. Immediately after the trial, he tried to appeal the court's decision. He filed an appeal through a lawyer, but to no avail. He is still behind bars. After the brutal massacre of an innocent girl, a memorial garden was built in April's honor, located not far from the very place where her life was literally trampled. There is also a small statue in the form of a dog named Penny, which led strangers to the place where her owner was brutally killed. Unfortunately, the pet was not able to find help quickly enough to save her life. The tragic story of April Millsap is a terrible reminder of how dangerous the world can be even in seemingly the safest places. This chilling tale is about the shattered life of a young girl, full of dreams and hopes, which was cut short by the cruelty and perverse desires of an adult man. April became a victim not only of James Van Callis, but also of society's indifference to violence against women and children. This case showed how important it is to pay attention to alarming signals, respond to threats in a timely manner, and do everything possible to protect our children from potential predators. Although justice prevailed in this case, and the killer received the deserved punishment, nothing will bring April back to life or heal the wounds of her loved ones. This story will forever remain a painful memory for her family, friends, and the entire Armada community. But at the same time, this tragedy demonstrated the strength of the human spirit and compassion. People rallied to support April's family, help the investigation, and honor the girl's memory. The memorial garden and the statue of the dog, Penny, became symbols of resilience in the face of evil and hope for a better future. April Millsap's story is not just another episode of the Criminal Chronicle. It is a call to each of us to be vigilant, caring, and humane, because only then can we build a society in which our children will be safe and criminals will not be able to escape punishment. If this story touched you, subscribe to the YouTube channel Detective Brooks. There you will find many other fascinating stories about real crimes, professional analysis of events, and exclusive details of investigations. Join the community of caring people and help spread important information that can save someone's life. Remember, evil is afraid of light, and as long as we are united, we are invincible. 2016, a separate room in the Disney Channel office. Young video blogger Jake Paul signs a contract to star in the series Bizaardvark. No one could have predicted then that this smiling guy would become the center of one of the biggest scandals on social media a few years later. According to official data, the path to fame began on the Vine platform, where Jake, together with his older brother Logan, shot short comedy videos. But the investigation shows a different picture. Even then, the teenager used dubious methods to gain popularity. Former classmates recall cases of bullying that he filmed on camera. Videos where he bullies weaker students were later deleted, but copies survived in the archives of the school administration. Particular attention is drawn to the testimonies of Paul's former friends from Cleveland. According to them, already at the age of 15, he showed signs of sociopathy. He could spend hours planning revenge on those who offended him. He used personal information for blackmail. 3 cases of cyberbullying ended in suicide attempts by his victims. Police reports from that period mention systematic psychological abuse, but the cases were quickly closed due to the suspect's age. 2017 becomes a turning point. Jake creates the Team 10, a group of young bloggers living together in a mansion in Los Angeles. At first glance, it's an ordinary creative team, but the testimonies of former members reveal a horrifying picture of psychological abuse and manipulation. Financial documents from that period show a complex scheme of exploitation of young talents. The contract signed by the members of Team 10 contained clauses about complete control over their personal lives. It was forbidden to communicate with relatives without permission. Phones were tapped. Emails were monitored. Any disobedience was subject to fines. According to the Los Angeles police, during the existence of Team 10, 47 calls were received from neighbors. Complaints included not only loud parties, but also suspicious nightly gatherings, sounds of explosions, and screams. The fire department was called 3 times due to arson on the estate grounds. In one case, a 16-year-old girl was injured, but her parents suddenly withdrew the statement after receiving a significant sum of money. 2018 brings the first serious scandals. Former Team 10 member Alyssa Violet publicly accuses Jake of emotional abuse. According to her, he created a cult-like atmosphere in the house where everyone had to obey his will unquestioningly. Other former team members talk about surveillance cameras in bedrooms and bathrooms. The video recordings were then used for blackmail. A journalistic investigation reveals that closed parties for influential Hollywood people were regularly held at the Team 10 mansion. Minors were present at these events. According to former employees, guests were offered special entertainment. 3 cases of sexual assault were hushed up with the help of expensive lawyers. Financial fraud becomes more and more obvious. Analysis shows that a significant portion of views on Paul's channel was generated through bots. According to experts, up to 40% of his audience were fake accounts. At the same time, advertisers paid for contracts based on inflated metrics. The total amount of fraud is estimated at millions of dollars. 2019 adds new dark colors to Jake Paul's portrait. Evidence emerges about underground parties at the Team 10 mansion, where underage girls were offered alcohol and drugs. Police reports mention 3 cases of overdose that were hushed up thanks to influential connections. 2 girls later went missing. During the same period, information surfaces about Paul's first attempts to enter the world of professional boxing, but not out of sports interest, but as a way to launder money. Banking documents show a series of suspicious transactions through offshore companies on the eve of his first fights. According to insiders, the results of the fights were agreed upon in advance with bookmakers. Most interestingly, all these scandals only increased his popularity. Jake Paul turned toxicity into a brand. Each new scandal brought new subscribers and advertising contracts. According to Forbes, by the end of 2019, his fortune was estimated at $11.5 million. Money earned through manipulation, deception, and exploitation of young talent. But this was just the beginning. The real problems began when he decided to go beyond YouTube and enter the world of big business and professional sports. A world where his usual methods of manipulation and deception could lead to much more serious consequences. 2020. The pandemic changes the world, but for Jake Paul, it becomes an opportunity to launch the biggest scam of his career. In the midst of the lockdown, he announces the creation of the Financial Freedom Movement online course. Price, $20 per month. Promise, to teach teenagers to earn millions without leaving home. The investigation shows that the course was created using stolen materials from other business coaches. Moreover, the bulk of the unique content turned out to be copied from free sources on the internet. In 3 months, the project collected more than $2 million from gullible teenagers. The money was immediately withdrawn through a network of offshore companies. But this was just the beginning. In July 2020, the FBI conducts a raid on Paul's mansion in Calabasas. The official reason is an investigation into mass riots at a shopping mall. But insider sources claim that the real purpose was to seize documents related to financial fraud. According to the investigation, Paul created a complex money laundering scheme through cryptocurrencies. He advertised junk tokens to his young audience, having bought them for next to nothing beforehand. After a sharp increase in price, due to the influx of investors, he secretly sold his assets, leaving fans with nothing. This scheme, known as pump and dump, brought him about $10 million. Particular attention is drawn to the Ding Doink project, a cryptocurrency that Paul actively promoted in 2021. The investigation revealed that he was the secret owner of 100% of the tokens at launch. After an aggressive advertising campaign, the price increased by 7,000%, and Paul sold his stake, collapsing the market. Thousands of teenagers lost their savings. In parallel, the NFT scheme evolved. Paul launched a digital art collection called Pokemon Cards, using copyrighted images. The project raised $4 million in 24 hours. Buyers never received the promised tokens, and the project website disappeared after a week. 2022 brings new revelations. Journalists find evidence that Paul used his boxing career to launder money. Before each fight, a network of fake accounts was created for betting. Bookmakers recorded suspicious activity, but the cases were hushed up. Bank documents show that millions of dollars from suspicious sources passed through Paul's accounts. The money was converted into cryptocurrency, passed through dozens of wallets, and returned as legal income from advertising and merchandise sales. The most scandalous project becomes the Boxing Fund, an investment scheme where Paul offered fans to invest in his boxing career. According to the documents, the funds raised were supposed to go towards training and organizing fights. In reality, the money was immediately withdrawn through front companies in Belize and the Cayman Islands. 2023, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission begins an investigation into Paul's activities. His crypto projects, investment schemes, and suspicious financial transactions come under scrutiny. But the most interesting things happen behind the scenes of this investigation. Information appears about Paul's connections with organized crime. Financial analysts find transfers to accounts associated with known criminal structures. People with criminal pasts who are responsible for solving problems appear in his entourage. Particular attention is drawn to a series of suspicious incidents. A journalist investigating Paul's crypto schemes gets into an accident. A former employee who threatened to reveal details of financial fraud suddenly recants his words after a visit from unknown persons. A server with evidence of fraud burns down during a mysterious fire. And now, when the fight with Mike Tyson has been announced, financial experts are sounding the alarm. Suspicious activity has already been recorded on betting sites. New offshore companies are being created, and offers to sell insider information about the outcome of the upcoming fight are appearing on the dark web. How many more secrets does Jake Paul's financial empire hide? And will the fight with Tyson become his biggest scam? 2020. A video appears on YouTube from former Team 10 member Justine Paradise. With tears in her eyes, the girl talks about sexual harassment by Jake Paul. But this video is just the beginning of an avalanche of revelations that shock even the blogger's most devoted fans. According to police reports, between 2017 and 2020, law enforcement agencies received 14 statements about sexual harassment related to the Team 10 mansion. 9 of them were withdrawn after receiving significant sums of money. 3 cases mysteriously disappeared from the police archive. 2 more statements remained without consideration due to lack of evidence. Former employees of the mansion talk about systematic abuse of young girls who came to auditions for Team 10. They were drugged, filmed in compromising videos, and then blackmailed. According to the guards, there was a special safe with hard drives where these recordings were kept. Particular attention is drawn to the story of the disappearance of 19-year-old model Emily Redford. She was last seen at a party at Paul's mansion in August 2019. A few days before her disappearance, she told friends about terrible things she had witnessed. Her phone was last recorded in the area of the Mojave Desert. The police investigation suddenly stops after a call from influential people. 2021 brings new revelations. Fragments of recordings from the mansion surveillance cameras leak onto the web. The videos show scenes of violence, underage substance abuse, and other illegal activities. Within 24 hours, all copies of the recordings disappear from the internet, and the accounts that distributed them are blocked. Investigators find evidence of the existence of underground rooms under the mansion, not indicated on the building plans. According to the builders, these rooms were equipped with soundproofing and video surveillance systems. Paul's official version is that they are studios for filming, but former team members talk about screams in the middle of the night and strange rituals. In May 2021, information surfaces about Paul's connections with an international human trafficking network. A journalistic investigation reveals that some castings for Team 10 were a cover for the selection of girls who were then taken abroad. 3 such cases are documented, but the cases never went to trial. Financial documents show regular payments of large sums in cash to PR consultants. According to insiders, this money went to bribe witnesses and solve problems with law enforcement agencies. One of these consultants previously worked for a well-known Los Angeles crime family. 2022. A series of FBI raids take place at Paul's mansion. The official reason is suspicion of weapons possession, but agents confiscate dozens of hard drives and documents related to completely different crimes. A week later, the lead agent in the case unexpectedly resigns and moves abroad. In parallel, details emerge about psychological manipulation in Team 10. According to former team members, Paul used methods similar to the practices of destructive cults: isolation from family, control over personal life, collective punishments. All this was part of the control system. Particularly chilling are the testimonies about the punishment room, a room in the basement of the mansion where Paul conducted educational conversations with disobedient team members. 3 former Team 10 members are still undergoing psychological rehabilitation after what they experienced there. 2023. New victims appear. Now from the boxing world. 2 girls from the cheerleading squad accuse Paul of attempted rape before one of the fights. The case does not go to trial. Both plaintiffs suddenly leave the country after receiving compensation for moral damage. The most shocking is the confession of a former bodyguard about the existence of an entire system for collecting compromising material. According to him, Paul has a dossier on everyone who has ever worked with him. Videos, audio recordings, personal correspondence. All this is kept as insurance in case someone wants to tell the truth. And now, as the fight with Mike Tyson approaches, new testimonies begin to leak out. Former sparring partners talk about unfair training methods. Coaches talk about the use of banned substances. And offers to sell shocking compromising material on Jake Paul are appearing on the dark web. January 17th, 2020. Las Vegas. Jake Paul announces his first professional boxing match. But the investigation shows that long before this moment, he was already involved in underground fights where huge sums of illegal bets were circulating. According to insiders from bookmakers, as early as 2019, Paul secretly organized fights in closed clubs in Los Angeles. The fights were held without a license, often using fake fighters. Bets were accepted in cash, with sums reaching $1 million per night. 5 such fights ended with serious injuries to the participants, and 1 fighter went missing. Paul's first official fight against Ines and Gibb raises suspicions among experts. A few hours before the match, millions of dollars are deposited into offshore company accounts associated with Paul. Bookmakers record anomalous bets on Paul's victory in the first round. Later, information emerges that the opponent received a bonus of $500,000 for the right result. 2021 becomes the year of the biggest scams. The fight with Ben Askren is accompanied by unprecedented activity on betting sites. According to Financial Intelligence, about $30 million were bet on Paul's victory through fake accounts. Experts note Askren's strange behavior during the fight. He falls from a punch that clearly did not have a knockout force. Particular attention is drawn to Paul's training camps. According to former sparring partners, banned substances were regularly used there. Medical documents that have leaked to the press show anomalous changes in Paul's blood tests. 3 laboratories that conducted the tests suddenly close after visits from unknown persons. The investigation reveals the connections of Paul's team with Mexican drug cartels. His private plane regularly flies to Mexico, officially for training camps. But radars record landings in areas known for the production of steroids and other banned substances. 3 members of his team were previously convicted of drug smuggling. 2022 brings new revelations. During the preparation for the fight with Tyron Woodley, a series of strange incidents occurs in Paul's training camp. 2 sparring partners are hospitalized with suspected poisoning. In the blood of one of them, traces of substances used for manipulating doping test results are found. Financial documents show a complex money laundering scheme through boxing matches. A network of front companies is created, supposedly engaged in organizing fights and selling tickets. In reality, millions of dollars from illegal bets and sales of banned substances pass through these firms. Of particular interest is Paul's role in underground bare-knuckle fights. According to the FBI, he was involved in organizing illegal tournaments where non-professional fighters fought. Bets were accepted in cryptocurrency, and fights often ended in serious injuries. 3 such tournaments were held in the basements of Las Vegas casinos, and one in an abandoned warehouse in Los Angeles. 2023 becomes the year of the biggest scandal. A former member of Paul's team leaks documents to the press proving systematic fraud with fight results. A complex scheme of bribing judges, manipulating gloves, and using banned substances is revealed. According to this data, 5 of Paul's fights were completely staged. Particular attention is drawn to the system of working with bookmakers. A few days before each fight, hundreds of fake accounts were created for betting. The money passed through cryptocurrency wallets, then was converted into cash through underground exchangers. According to experts, each fight laundered from $10 to $15 million in this way. During the same period, information emerges about Paul's ties to organized crime. People previously convicted of racketeering and extortion appear in his entourage. 3 former members of mafia clans become consultants for his boxing team. According to the police, they are responsible for solving problems with uncooperative opponents. The most shocking revelation is the exposure of the system of intimidation of opponents. Before each fight, Paul's opponents are subjected to psychological pressure. They receive threats, their family members are followed, and there are incidents with their property. 2 fighters refuse matches after visits from representatives of Paul's team. In parallel, a doping scandal develops. Laboratory tests reveal traces of experimental drugs in Paul's samples that are not detected by standard tests. 3 employees of the anti-doping service suddenly quit after trying to conduct an investigation. Their computers are hacked and data is destroyed. And now, when the fight with Mike Tyson has been announced, experts are sounding the alarm. The creation of new offshore companies for accepting bets has already been recorded. New suspicious characters with criminal pasts are appearing in Paul's entourage, and people known for their ties to manufacturers of banned substances have been spotted in his training camp. October 2024. Preparations for the biggest fight in Jake Paul's career enter an active phase. But behind the scenes of this event, a much more interesting story is unfolding. According to financial intelligence, over the past 3 months, more than $50 million have passed through offshore companies associated with Paul. Particular attention is drawn to a series of suspicious cryptocurrency transactions. In a week, more than 1,000 new wallets are created, through which huge sums begin to pass. Experts note the similarity of this scheme to Paul's previous scams around boxing matches. Strange things are happening in Paul's training camp. According to insiders, he hardly conducts any sparring sessions. Instead, he regularly meets with suspicious persons known for their ties to manufacturers of banned substances. 3 times his private plane flies to Mexico, returning with sports equipment. A new investigation reveals that Paul has created a network of front companies to work with bookmakers. Through these firms, a series of large bets are planned to be placed on the eve of the fight. According to preliminary estimates, the total amount may exceed $100 million. In parallel, information emerges about attempts to pressure Tyson's team. 3 members of his coaching staff report being followed and threatened. One of Tyson's sparring partners is hospitalized after an attack by unknown persons. Police find evidence of the involvement of people from Paul's entourage. Particular attention is drawn to Paul's new company, Victory Labs. Officially, it is engaged in the production of sports nutrition, but the investigation shows that components for the production of experimental stimulants are purchased through this firm. 3 former employees of Mexican drug cartels work as consultants in this company. 2 months before the fight, a mysterious psychological preparation specialist appears on Paul's team. According to the FBI, this person was previously involved in organizing fixed matches in professional sports. Secret meetings with representatives of bookmakers take place in his hotel room. October 2024 brings new revelations. Documents leak onto the web indicating Paul's attempts to organize a large-scale fraud around the upcoming fight. The plan includes manipulations with gloves, bribing judges, and using banned substances. The budget for this operation is estimated at $30 million. Law enforcement agencies record increased activity of criminal structures around the upcoming fight. Well-known representatives of the criminal world arrive in Las Vegas. Large sums of cash are being prepared for illegal bets. 3 underground bookmakers open special lines to accept special bets. Particular alarm is caused by the appearance in Paul's entourage of people associated with the production of synthetic drugs. According to the DEA, batches of new experimental stimulants regularly appear in his training camp. 2 employees of the anti-doping service suddenly take a vacation after trying to conduct an unscheduled check. Medical experts who analyze the latest videos of Paul's training note signs of the use of powerful psychotropic substances. His behavior is becoming increasingly inadequate. At press conferences, he talks about secret forces and supernatural abilities. 3 psychiatrists independently diagnose signs of severe psychosis. A week before the fight, information emerges about secret negotiations between Paul's representatives and the criminal authorities of Las Vegas. The meetings discuss the details of organizing the right result of the fight. The amounts of bribes for various participants in the process reach millions of dollars. All this creates an atmosphere of tense anticipation around the upcoming fight. Experts talk about an unprecedented level of corruption and manipulation. Law enforcement agencies are preparing a special operation, and bookmakers record strange fluctuations in odds. And now, when only a few days remain until November 15th, the main question arises. Will this fight become the apogee of Jake Paul's fraudulent career? Will law enforcement agencies be able to prevent the largest scam in the history of boxing? And what price will have to be paid for the truth? Perhaps we will learn the answers to these questions soon. But one thing can be said for sure. The story of Jake Paul is not just the story of a successful blogger who became a boxer. This is a story about how modern technologies and social networks can create the perfect cover for the biggest scams of our time. The story of Jake Paul is not just a story about one blogger who turned into a boxer. It is a warning for an entire generation that has grown up in the era of social networks, where the line between reality and fiction is becoming thinner. Starting from 2016, when the young video blogger signed his first contract with Disney Channel, to the fight with Mike Tyson in 2024, we see the evolution of not just a scammer, but an entire system of manipulation that has become possible thanks to new technologies and the gullibility of a young audience. According to social media researchers, over 70% of teenagers consider influencers a more reliable source of information than traditional media. It is this blind trust that has allowed Paul and other bloggers to create financial pyramids, cryptocurrency scams, and other fraudulent schemes that have brought them millions while ruining their fans. Particular attention is drawn to the fact that most of the victims of Paul's fraudulent schemes are teenagers and young people aged 13 to 21. According to financial experts, the total losses of his audience from various scams exceed $200 million. And these are only the cases that have become known. Psychologists note a dangerous trend. Modern social networks create the illusion of closeness with idols. Teenagers believe that bloggers they watch every day cannot deceive them. They perceive advertising posts as friendly advice and calls to invest as caring about their future. Law enforcement agencies sound the alarm. Over the past 5 years, the number of financial crimes using social networks has increased by 400%. At the same time, it is becoming more and more difficult to solve such crimes. Scammers use cryptocurrencies, offshore companies, and other methods of hiding funds. The story of Paul's boxing career shows how easy it is to manipulate public opinion. Millions of fans sincerely believe that a blogger suddenly became a professional boxer. They did not see or did not want to see obvious signs of staged fights, fixed matches, and financial scams. Particularly alarming is that Paul's scheme has become a kind of template for other influencers. Today, dozens of bloggers are trying to repeat his path, creating their own financial pyramids, one-day cryptocurrencies, and other fraudulent projects. Cybersecurity experts warn, we are on the verge of a new era of financial crimes. Social networks give scammers unprecedented opportunities for manipulation. They can create fake personalities, falsify achievements, and hide criminal schemes behind a beautiful picture on Instagram. The fact alone is worth something that most of Paul's support team on social networks consisted of bots and paid accounts. According to analysts, up to 60% of his subscribers were fake, but this did not prevent him from selling advertising for million-dollar contracts. Even more dangerous is the influence of people like Paul on the psyche of the young generation. They create toxic behavior patterns where deception and manipulation are presented as the norm, and quick enrichment at any cost becomes the main goal in life. The story of underground fights and ties to the criminal world shows how thin the line is between virtual popularity and real crime. Social networks are becoming the perfect cover for money laundering, trafficking in banned substances, and other illegal activities. And now, as the fight with Mike Tyson approaches, we see the final act of this drama. All signs indicate that this will not just be a boxing match, but another grand scam that could become the biggest in the history of sports. But the main lesson we must learn from the story of Jake Paul is not only about him personally. This is a lesson about how easy it is in the modern world to create the illusion of success, wealth, and fame. A silent night. Suddenly, the silence is shattered by a powerful explosion. Within seconds, a black Audi RS6 roars to life. The speedometer reads 250 kilometers per hour. 15 minutes later, the car is already crossing the border between Germany and the Netherlands, leaving behind a bewildered police force and a smashed ATM. This is not a scene from The Fast and the Furious. This is the reality of modern Europe, where a group of professional criminals, known as the Audi gang, has been terrorizing law enforcement agencies of 2 countries. According to the police, since 2015, they have carried out hundreds of daring attacks, stolen millions of euros in cash, and part of the gang still remains elusive. The history of this criminal organization began in 2015 on the German-Dutch border. Initially, the police did not link separate incidents together. Thefts of luxury Audis in Germany, brazen robberies in the Netherlands. But it soon became clear all these crimes were committed by one group that had developed a unique robbery method. According to the investigation, the group consists of 200 to 500 people, mostly young men with Moroccan roots who have Dutch citizenship. Most of them come from troubled areas of Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and Utrecht, where high unemployment and lack of prospects push young people onto the path of crime. The technical training of the criminals is particularly striking. Each member of the gang is a professional in their field. Some specialize in car theft, others are experts in explosives, and others are responsible for logistics and operation planning. But their main advantage is the powerful Audi RS6s, with a standard output of 580 horsepower. In underground workshops, these cars undergo serious preparation. All GPS tracking systems are removed, special tires are installed for driving on punctured wheels, and additional fuel tanks are fitted for prolonged chases. On German autobahns, such vehicles are capable of reaching speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour, making pursuit virtually impossible. According to German police, in 2022 alone, 493 attacks on ATMs were recorded. The total amount of annual losses reaches 20 million euros. But the greatest concern is not the financial aspect, but the growing brutality of the criminals. In North Rhine-Westphalia, the state bordering the Netherlands, in the first half of 2022, the number of explosions doubled compared to the same period of the previous year. The investigation revealed a shocking scheme of the gang's operation. First, they steal Audi RS6s in Germany. The cars are transported to secret workshops in the Netherlands, where they are modified, repainted, and prepared for operations. In parallel, another group studies potential targets, ATMs with large sums of cash and convenient escape routes. The operation itself takes just a few minutes. The gang operates in groups of 3 to 4 people, using a minimum of 2 vehicles. One blocks possible police approach routes, while the other, the technical group, sets the explosives. After the explosion, they grab the money and instantly disappear. In Amsterdam, out of 12 attempted bombings, only once did the criminals manage to escape with the money. That's how serious the security measures have become. Interestingly, it was the strengthening of security in the Netherlands that forced the gang to refocus on Germany. There, ATMs often contain more cash, and security systems are weaker. Moreover, in the Netherlands, most ATMs have been moved to residential areas, making attacks too risky due to possible civilian casualties. The change in hacking methods poses a particular danger. Whereas previously criminals used gas mixtures, they have now switched to powerful explosives. In 2020, the number of attacks using explosives increased by a staggering 516.7%. The explosives are wrapped in tape and placed near the cash dispensing slot, resulting in extensive damage. In Dusseldorf, a special international investigative team has been set up to coordinate the fight against the gang. However, the unique structure of the organization, without a clear hierarchy, with autonomous groups, complicates the work of the police. According to Europol, this is not so much an organized gang as it is a criminal phenomenon that requires a special approach to investigation. The Audi gang has forced a rethinking of methods for combating organized crime in Europe. Their technical skill, speed of response, and decentralized structure pose unprecedented challenges for law enforcement. And while banks install new security systems and the police develop new interception methods, the main question remains open: how to stop criminals who have turned Europe's autobahns into their personal racetrack. Behind every successful robbery by the Audi gang lies a complex system of preparation and planning. The investigation revealed that the criminals created an entire infrastructure, from car theft to the establishment of a training center where they train new personnel and practice hacking methods on real ATMs. It all starts with target selection. Reconnaissance teams analyze ATMs in the border regions of Germany. They study the location of surveillance cameras, police response times, security systems, and escape routes. Particular attention is paid to ATMs near motorways. This allows them to cross the border into the Netherlands as quickly as possible. The organization has a well-established scheme for choosing targets. According to the police, the criminals have created a detailed database of ATMs, where each object is classified by risk level and potential profit. They even know the approximate amounts of cash at different locations. The police suspect that the gang has informants in the banking sector. In parallel with reconnaissance, teams specializing in the theft of Audi RS6s, the car that has become the gang's calling card, are at work. The choice of this model is not accidental. The standard RS6 has a powerful engine with 580 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and a spacious interior where all the necessary equipment can be placed. One of the detained gang members, Kevin H., was a notorious car thief in his city. Stolen vehicles are transported to underground workshops in the Netherlands. There they undergo serious preparation. All standard GPS tracking systems are removed. Special tires capable of withstanding police spikes are installed, and additional fuel tanks are fitted. A lot of attention is paid to electronics. The cars are equipped with police radar detection and remote engine blocking protection systems. The most interesting details about the preparation of the vehicles were revealed by a detained gang member. According to him, each car undergoes complete disguise. Numbers are changed, color is altered, and fake identification numbers are installed. In case of pursuit, the cars are capable of reaching speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour on the autobahns, making the chase virtually impossible. The investment in preparing one vehicle is significant, about 100,000 euros. However, these costs are quickly recouped. If in the Netherlands, due to enhanced security measures, out of 12 bombing attempts, only one can be successful, in Germany, where protection is weaker, the gang regularly obtains significant loot. In 2020 alone, the amount of stolen funds amounted to 17 million euros. The evolution of ATM hacking methods is of particular interest. Initially, the gang used the gas method. Through a special hole, they pumped in an explosive mixture that detonated from an electrical impulse. But after banks installed systems to neutralize gas and dye banknotes, they had to change tactics. Now criminals use explosives wrapped in tape, which they place near the cash dispensing slot. This method has proven so effective that in 2020, the number of such attacks increased by 516.7%. However, it is more dangerous. Explosions often lead to significant destruction and threaten the lives of local residents. The robbery operation itself is timed to the second. The gang operates in groups of 3 to 4 people. A minimum of 2 cars are used, one for the attack, the other for cover. In Utrecht, the police discovered a training center where criminals practiced every stage of the operation on real ATMs. Training videos were also filmed there about the most effective blasting methods. From the moment they approached the ATM to escaping with the money, no more than 3 to 4 minutes pass. During this time, they managed to set the explosives, blow up the safe, collect the money, and disappear. Operations are conducted mainly at night. Criminals use masks and night vision devices. After each operation, the vehicles are repainted or dismantled for parts. An interesting case occurred with a newer T, who ran a network of garages in Utrecht. Stolen cars were stored there, which were then sold to other criminal groups with new numbers. According to the police, some of these cars were even used to prepare high-profile murders. Unlike traditional criminal organizations, the Audi gang does not have a clear hierarchy. According to Europol, it is more of a criminal phenomenon than a structured group. Each autonomous team has its own specialization and can act independently. It is this feature that makes fighting the gang so difficult. The arrest of one group does not stop the activities of others. New members are recruited mainly in troubled areas of Dutch cities. They are attracted by quick money and exciting adventures. Newcomers undergo serious training at the training center, where they learn not only to drive powerful cars, but also to work with explosives. Unfortunately, this sometimes leads to tragedies. In 2020, one of the newcomers died during an explosives training exercise. The gang's security system is also impressive in its complexity. They use encrypted communications, have their own intelligence, and constantly monitor police actions. After each successful attack, The money goes through a complex laundering system before entering legal circulation. The gang's annual turnover is estimated at tens of millions of euros. In North Rhine-Westphalia, an ATM explodes almost every other day. Due to the strengthening of security measures in the border regions, criminals have begun to move to other federal states of Germany, where protection is weaker. Even large-scale police operations have so far failed to stop this wave of robberies. The gang's technological arsenal is constantly being updated. The investigation revealed that the criminals carefully document their methods, create training videos, and constantly improve their tactics. Their ability to adapt to new security measures impresses even experienced police officers. As one German investigator noted, this is not just a gang. This is a criminal phenomenon that requires completely new methods of fighting. A quiet night at the beginning of 2016. The small German town of Uerdingen. 3 young criminals from Utrecht have just robbed a phone store and are speeding away in a stolen Audi. In a few minutes, this night will become one of the most tragic in the history of the Audi gang and will forever change the perception of the level of danger posed by these criminals. Surveillance cameras captured the gang's classic style: a black Audi at a breakneck speed, a team in dark clothing. But this time something went wrong. On one of the turns, the car lost control. The consequences were fatal. 2 gangsters died on the spot, and the third, Yassine, was paralyzed for life. Just a month later, another tragedy occurred. After successfully blowing up an ATM at Sparkus in Meppen, another trio of criminals tried to escape in an Audi RS4. At breakneck speed, they collided with a truck and then crashed into a tree. Sadiq S., a relative of Yassine, was killed instantly. Kevin H. survived, but he had to be cut out of the mangled car. The third gang member, Anur T., tried to escape on foot and called a taxi to the nearest hotel. The bloodied criminal was quickly arrested after the taxi driver notified the police. These tragic incidents provided invaluable information to the investigation about the gang's methods of operation. DNA material, the names of the criminals, and evidence from the vehicles were obtained. The investigation showed that this is not a single structured organization, but a network of different groups operating autonomously, often without coordination among themselves. Each attack is carried out by a group of 3 to 4 people, where each has their own specialization. For example, the detained Kevin H. was a notorious car thief in his city. Anur T., a former kickboxer from Utrecht, had connections with the drug mafia and ran a network of underground garages where stolen cars were stored. In March 2020, an event occurred that forced the police to radically change their approach to fighting the gang. During an attack on an ING ATM in Breda, a powerful explosion occurred. After an eerie silence, an Audi with 3 young criminals sped towards Belgium. During the chase, the gangsters opened fire on the police with automatic weapons. The chase ended only after the Belgian police set up special spikes on the highway. But the greatest concern was caused by the gang's change in tactics. Whereas previously they used gas mixtures for blasting, they have now switched to powerful explosives. In 2020, the number of such attacks increased by a staggering 516.7%. The new method involved the use of explosives wrapped in tape, which was placed near the cash dispensing slot. One of the most high-profile cases involved Tariq B., whose gang carried out at least 15 bombings in Germany. During one of the attacks, the explosion was so powerful that the entire building, from which a family barely managed to evacuate, caught fire. For this case, the prosecutor's office initiated an investigation under the article Attempted Murder. In response to the escalation of violence, the police also changed their tactics. Instead of direct pursuit, which often ended tragically, they began to use the method of silent pursuit, secretly observing the criminals until the moment when they can be safely detained. The fight against the Audi gang has turned into a real war on the roads of Europe, where the stakes are constantly rising and the methods are becoming increasingly dangerous. And while the police develop new interception methods and banks strengthen security systems, the Audi gang continues its dangerous game. Each new attack can be fatal, both for the criminals themselves and for random witnesses. This is no longer just a robbery. It is a deadly race where the price of a mistake is a human life. It's like trying to catch a shadow. This is how the chief investigator of Europol described the fight against the Audi gang. And he was right. Over the years of investigation, the police of Germany and the Netherlands have spent enormous resources, employed the latest technologies, and involved hundreds of agents. The results have been mixed. The group continues to operate, constantly adapting to new countermeasures. The active phase of the confrontation began after it became clear traditional methods of police work are ineffective against this new type of crime. The German and Dutch police joined forces, creating a special task force. For the first time in the history of the European police, such close international cooperation was established to combat a single criminal group. The first serious results came unexpectedly. During a standard border check, customs officers discovered a truck with a false bottom. There were not only tools and equipment for breaking into ATMs, but also detailed documentation, diagrams of security systems, and escape routes. This find allowed a first glimpse into the criminal organization's kitchen. The investigation showed that the Audi gang is not a classic hierarchical structure, but rather a criminal phenomenon, as Europol calls it. It is a network of autonomous groups operating independently of each other, but using similar methods and tactics. It is this feature that makes fighting them so difficult. According to the police, this network includes 200 to 500 people, mostly young men of Moroccan origin with Dutch citizenship. They have created a complex infrastructure, from car theft to their modification, from target reconnaissance to the direct execution of attacks. Each performs their role. There are specialists in car theft, explosives experts, drivers, and logisticians. At the same time, in North Rhine-Westphalia, ATMs explode almost every other day. Some of this money, the criminals invest in legal businesses, including auto repair shops and tuning studios. A separate line of investigation is related to a newer T, who ran a network of garages in Utrecht. Stolen vehicles were stored there, which were then sold to various criminal groups with new numbers. His arrest made it possible to uncover an important part of the gang's logistical structure. In response to the growing threat, banks began to introduce new security systems. Devices are being installed that pour paint over the money or glue it into a solid block if an attempt is made to hack them. In the Netherlands, most ATMs have been moved to residential areas, which has significantly complicated the work of criminals. In 2021, only 20 attacks were recorded there. It is interesting to trace the evolution of the gang's methods. Initially, they used gas for blasting. When banks installed gas neutralization systems, the criminals switched to explosives and tape, which they placed near the cash dispensing slot. In 2020, the number of such attacks increased by 516.7%. One of the biggest successes was the arrest of Tarek BS Group, which carried out at least 15 bombings in Germany. The investigation lasted a year and a half and made it possible for the first time to study in detail the organizational structure of the criminals. It turned out that they had created a full-fledged personnel training system. However, even successful arrests do not stop the gang's activities. When control is strengthened in one region, the criminals simply move to another where protection is weaker. After the police intensified their efforts on the German-Dutch border, attacks became more frequent in other federal states of Germany. An important factor is the adaptability of the criminals. They are constantly improving their methods, studying new security systems, and finding ways to circumvent them. In Amsterdam, a series of powerful explosions occurred over 4 months, but out of 12 attempts, only one was successful. That's how serious the countermeasures have become. The investigation continues, and the police of both countries are constantly improving their methods of fighting. But the main difficulty lies in the fact that the Audi gang is not a traditional criminal organization, but a new type of criminal phenomenon. As one of the German investigators noted, for effective counteraction, new approaches and even closer international cooperation are needed. With each new incident, it becomes increasingly obvious that this problem requires a comprehensive solution. It is not enough to simply catch the perpetrators. It is necessary to undermine the entire infrastructure, cut off the channels for selling stolen goods, and block financial flows. Only such a comprehensive strategy can yield real results in the fight against this unique criminal phenomenon. But for now, the Audi gang continues its activities, constantly evolving and adapting. It seems that this confrontation is far from over, and there are still many unexpected turns ahead in this exciting but dangerous game between criminals and the law. 2023 has opened a new era in the history of European crime. At a conference of police unit chiefs in Brussels, a shocking statement was made. We can no longer consider the Audi gang as an ordinary criminal group. This is the first case where a criminal organization is evolving faster than the methods of fighting it. The digital revolution has fundamentally changed the rules of the game. Whereas previously the criminal world developed according to understandable schemes, now we are witnessing the emergence of hybrid forms of crime. The Audi gang has become the first organization to combine physical crimes with high-tech methods of planning and coordination. Security experts note an alarming trend. Traditional criminal groups are beginning to copy the methods of the Audi gang. In Italy, there have been cases where the local mafia uses similar tactics to attack cash-in-transit vehicles. In France, groups specializing in the theft of luxury cars using high-tech equipment have appeared. The banking sector is experiencing a real revolution. For the first time in history, financial institutions are forced to reconsider not only security systems, but also the very principle of working with cash. In Switzerland, the concept of smart vaults is being developed. Fully automated bank branches without staff, protected by artificial intelligence. International experts predict 3 possible scenarios for the development of the situation. The first is that the technological arms race will lead to the emergence of a new generation of security systems capable of effectively countering any hacking attempts. The second is that the financial system will completely abandon cash, rendering attacks on ATMs pointless. The third, most alarming, is the emergence of a global network of high-tech criminal groups. The influence of the Audi gang phenomenon is felt far beyond the criminal world. Architects are reconsidering the principles of designing bank branches. A new direction is emerging, secure architecture, where security is integrated into the building's design itself. Urban planners are creating special zones with controlled access for the placement of financial institutions. The security industry is also undergoing transformation. Traditional security firms are giving way to high-tech companies specializing in comprehensive solutions. New products are appearing on the market, from quantum encryption systems to autonomous interceptor drones. The insurance business is forced to adapt to new realities. Companies are developing special products to protect against high-tech crimes. New types of insurance are emerging against cyber-physical attacks, against failures in security systems, against losses due to forced branch closures. Particular attention is drawn to the impact of this phenomenon on police training. New disciplines are appearing in police academies that combine traditional criminology with the study of high technology. A new generation of investigators is being formed, capable of working at the intersection of the physical and digital worlds. The psychology of the criminal world is also changing. Whereas previously status in the criminal environment was determined by physical strength and cruelty, now technical skills and intelligence are coming to the fore. This leads to the emergence of a new type of criminal, a highly educated professional with a deep understanding of technology. Sociologists note the formation of a new phenomenon, the technological romanticization of crime. In mass culture, The image of the intelligent criminal is beginning to supplant traditional criminal archetypes. This is especially noticeable in the attitude of young people who perceive high-tech crimes as a kind of intellectual challenge. Economists predict long-term consequences for the financial system. The cost of maintaining the ATM network is becoming so high that banks are beginning to actively promote alternative ways of obtaining cash. Commentators compare these shots to scenes from The Fast and the Furious, but with one key difference: this is real life. The music industry has also not been left out. German and Dutch rappers release tracks about the Audi gang. The lyrics glorify speed, technical skill, and the audacity of the criminals. Some songs become hits, despite criticism for romanticizing crime. Paradoxically, it is the Audi brand itself that has benefited the most from this phenomenon. The RS6 model, which was previously known only to a narrow circle of car enthusiasts, has become iconic. Audi dealerships report a significant increase in interest in this model. Young people come to car dealerships and directly state that they want the same car as the gangs. Officially, Audi distances itself from any associations with criminal activity, but marketers admit the free advertising provided by the Audi gang is worth millions of euros. The RS6 has become a symbol of speed, technical excellence, and a rebellious spirit. Everything that any sports car manufacturer dreams of. Whole communities of fans are forming on social networks. They discuss each new attack, analyze the technical modifications of the vehicles, and argue about escape routes. Some even try to justify the actions of the criminals, portraying them as modern-day Robin Hoods challenging the system. Film studios are already fighting for the rights to film the story of the Audi gang. Several scripts are in development. Hollywood producers see the potential in this story to create a new franchise that can compete with The Fast and the Furious. Social media experts note the uniqueness of the situation. For the first time in history, a criminal group is receiving this level of public support not because of political or social motives, but solely due to the style of their crimes. Speed, technology, skill, all this resonates with modern culture, especially among young people. The police and sociologists are sounding the alarm. The romanticization of the Audi gang can lead to the emergence of imitators. Already now, in different countries, attempts are being recorded to copy their methods. Young people, inspired by stories of brazen robberies and breakneck chases, may try to repeat the exploits of their idols. Video games are even appearing online where players can try their hand at being members of the Audi gang. Simulators of chases and modified RS6s collect thousands of downloads. Game developers say they are simply responding to audience demand, but critics accuse them of promoting crime. The Audi gang phenomenon has become the subject of serious sociological research. Scientists are trying to understand why criminal activity causes such fascination in society. Preliminary conclusions suggest that the gang has become a symbol of protest against the system, an embodiment of the dream of speed and freedom. Interestingly, even professional race car drivers express respect for the driving skills of gang members. In private conversations, they admit that driving a car at such speeds in urban conditions requires exceptional skills. Although publicly, of course, they condemn the use of these skills for criminal purposes. Journalists note another interesting aspect. The Audi gang has created a new type of criminal celebrity. Unlike traditional criminals, they do not seek publicity, do not give interviews, and do not boast about their achievements. This mysteriousness only enhances their appeal in the eyes of the public. Social networks are full of conspiracy theories and speculation about the identities of the gang members. Each new robbery triggers an avalanche of posts and comments. Fans analyze every detail, create maps of the alleged routes, and discuss the technical specifications of the modified vehicles. The Audi gang phenomenon has become a prime example of how, in the modern world, the line between real crime and mass entertainment is blurring. The story of high-tech robbers has turned into a kind of reality show watched by the whole world. How will this confrontation end? Will law enforcement agencies finally be able to stop the elusive criminals? Or will the Audi gang transform into something even more dangerous? For now, these questions remain unanswered. But one thing can be said for sure. We are witnessing the birth of a new era in the criminal world. An era where speed, technology, and intelligence become the main weapons. Maybe right now, as you watch this video, somewhere on the German autobahns, a black Audi RS6 is speeding, and its driver already knows something that we will only find out tomorrow. July 19th, 1991, the Canterbury Hotel in Indianapolis. At 2:30 a.m., surveillance cameras capture a crying girl running out of the main entrance. A few hours later, she will write a statement about rape. Within a month, 5 other women will be ready to testify about similar incidents. Only one case will make it to court. 3 witnesses will mysteriously die in car accidents. 1 woman will disappear without a trace. Another will recant her testimony after a visit from unknown men in black. This is just one episode from the dark history of Mike Tyson, the youngest world heavyweight champion. A man whose name has become a symbol not only of boxing greatness, but also of unsolved crimes. Over the 37 years of his career, 23 people have either died or disappeared around him. Financial fraud through front companies reached $300 million. Underground bare-knuckle fights, occult rituals, ties to drug cartels. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And now, as the 58-year-old Tyson prepares for a fight with Jake Paul on November 15th, 2024, it's time to reveal the whole truth. The truth that began on the dirty streets of Brownsville, Brooklyn, officially one of the most dangerous neighborhoods of New York in the 1970s. This is where, at house number 178 on Amboy Street, Mike Tyson was born. His mother, Lorna Smith, worked odd jobs to feed 3 children. His father left the family before Mike was born. According to documents, his father was Jimmy Kirkpatrick, a pimp with a criminal past. Although Tyson himself later claimed that his real father was another man, a famous boxer at the time. By the age of 7, little Mike was already taking part in street fights. By 10, he led a street gang. Police records show that by 13, he had been arrested 38 times for robbery, theft, and assault. He rarely attended school. Documents show he was expelled from 7 educational institutions. An interesting fact: as a child, Tyson made money by breaking into other people's houses through windows. He was so small and agile that he could even squeeze through narrow transoms. Local crime bosses used him for their own purposes, paying him pennies. By his own admission, he earned his first serious money, $500, from burglary. The turning point came at a reform school for juvenile delinquents in Brooklyn. This is where the meeting that changed everything took place. Former boxer Bobby Stewart, who worked with troubled teens, noticed Tyson's unusual abilities. He introduced the boy to the legendary trainer Cus D'Amato. Cus D'Amato, a man who had already created 2 world champions, Floyd Patterson and Jose Torres. But his training methods, documented in numerous interviews and memoirs of his students, were far from conventional. D'Amato would take promising boxers to live in his home in Catskill, completely isolating them from the outside world. According to official documents, D'Amato became the legal guardian of 14-year-old Tyson after his mother's death. The daily routine was harsh. Wake up at 5 a.m., run, train, school, train again. No entertainment, no television, no girls. Just boxing. Archival training records show the amazing progress of young Tyson. In his first year of training, he had 60 amateur fights, winning 56 of them by knockout. His punch was already so powerful that special reinforced punching bags were ordered for him. He would simply destroy regular ones. By 18, Tyson weighed 214 pounds at a height of 5 feet 10 inches. Medical examinations at the time showed abnormal bone density and extremely developed musculature, a result of genetics and exhausting training. His neck was thicker than that of professional weightlifters. But the most interesting things were happening behind the scenes at D'Amato's training camp. According to eyewitness accounts, the old trainer held strange psychological sessions with Tyson. He would spend hours telling stories about the great conquerors of the past, forcing him to read books on military strategy. It is documented that D'Amato's library contained books on hypnosis and psychological programming. When Cuz D'Amato died of pneumonia in 1985, 19-year-old Tyson was left alone with a world he was absolutely unprepared for. He had phenomenal boxing skills but lacked basic social skills. He didn't know how to communicate with people outside the ring, how to manage money, how to build relationships. And here enters the man who will change his life forever, Don King. A promoter with 2 murders in his past, one acquitted as self-defense, for the other he served for years. King saw a gold mine in the young Tyson. Documents show that the very first contract Tyson signed with King contained clauses that effectively made the boxer the promoter's financial slave. Thus began the rise to fame, which will soon turn into one of the most stunning cases of downfall in the history of sports. 1986. In just 1 year of his professional career, Mike Tyson has 15 fights, all victories, 13 by knockout. Sports analysts were shocked. Such statistics had never been seen in heavyweight history. But even more shocking were the financial reports. According to official data, the 20-year-old boxer earned $50 million. And according to unofficial data, twice as much. HBO boxing specialists who filmed his fights recorded an incredible fact. The average duration of a Tyson fight was 1 minute 47 seconds. Viewers often didn't even have time to sit down before it was all over. Bookmakers began to refuse to take bets on Tyson's victory. The odds were so low that it lost all meaning. An interesting fact: according to the medical commissions examining Tyson's opponents, 80% of them required hospitalization after the fight, for ended their careers due to injuries sustained. Tyson's punch developed a speed of 760 kilograms per square centimeter, enough to break through a brick wall. But outside the ring, things were not so rosy. Financial documents from that period paint a strange picture. Huge sums disappeared from Tyson's accounts within days. Cash was hauled away in suitcases. In one weekend, he could spend $1 million. Jewelry stores on Fifth Avenue would close to other customers when Iron Mike came to town. Don King, taking advantage of Tyson's inexperience, created a complex system of contracts. An audit in 1988 revealed that 30% of each of the boxers' purses automatically went to the accounts of front companies. In total, according to expert estimates, King appropriated about $100 million from Tyson's earnings through various schemes. Particular attention is drawn to the period of preparation for the championship fight with Trevor Berbick. A week before the match, a series of strange incidents occurred at Tyson's training camp. 3 sparring partners were hospitalized. The official version is training injuries, but medical reports mention injuries unusual for boxing. One of the boxers later hinted at non-standard training methods, but quickly fell silent after a visit from King's people. The marriage to Robin Givens in 1988 was the beginning of the end. Police reports from that period contain shocking details. 24 calls in 8 months. Broken mirrors, smashed furniture, traces of blood on the walls. One report records that Tyson threw a 50-inch television out of a 5th-floor window because it was showing boxing without him. According to security, Tyson kept 3 Bengal tigers on his estate. The cost of their upkeep was $4,000 a day. An interesting fact: the tigers were trained to respond to the command, "Sick Bim." Neighbors repeatedly complained about the eerie roaring in the middle of the night and missing pets. But the darkest page of this period is the ties to the criminal world. The U.S. Tax Service recorded regular visits to Tyson's estate by known mafia bosses. According to the FBI, some of Tyson's fights were attended by all the heads of the East Coast crime clans, something that hadn't happened since the days of Al Capone. The first serious crack appeared in February 1990, the fight with James "Buster" Douglas in Tokyo. Tyson found himself knocked out for the first time in his career. Later, evidence emerged that before the fight, he had spent 48 hours without sleep, partying with local prostitutes. His trainer found him in a hotel room 2 hours before the fight. Tyson was eating ice cream and watching Japanese cartoons. Analysis of boxing statistics shows striking changes. If in the early years of his career Tyson landed an average of 40 accurate punches per round, now this number had dropped to 12. Medical tests revealed traces of cocaine and alcohol in his blood. But the worst was yet to come. July 19, 1991. The Canterbury Hotel in Indianapolis. 2:30 a.m. surveillance cameras capture a crying 18-year-old girl running out of the hotel. This is Desiree Washington, a contestant in the Miss Black America pageant. A few hours later, she will appear at the police station with a statement that will forever change the history of boxing. A rape allegation. The suspect, Mike Tyson, the youngest world heavyweight champion. Court transcripts reveal a shocking picture of that night. The medical examination records not only traces of sexual assault, but also numerous bruises, bite marks, and soft tissue tears. Testimony from hotel staff describes animalistic screams from room 606. But most interestingly, the surveillance camera recordings from this period mysteriously disappear from the hotel archive. Within the next week, 5 more women go to the police. They all tell similar stories about encounters with Tyson between 1988 and 1991. Police reports contain detailed descriptions of the violence, but these cases never make it to court. According to detectives working on the case, all the women were offered hush money. The amounts range from $50,000 to $250,000. Tyson's financial activity during this period is of particular interest. Bank statements show a series of strange transactions. A week before the trial, $5 million disappear from his accounts. The money passes through a network of shell companies in the Cayman Islands and vanishes without a trace. Additionally, the bank's security service records 12 visits by unknown persons to Tyson's safe deposit boxes. On February 10, 1992, the court delivers its verdict, 6 years in prison. Tyson is sent to the Indiana State Prison, and here begins the strangest part of the story. Prison records from 1992 to 1995 reveal an unprecedented picture. Usually, those convicted of rape are held in strict conditions. But not Tyson. He receives special status. His 80-square-meter cell is more like a hotel room. A personal TV, a music center, a collection of books. Over the 3 years of imprisonment, more than $200,000 are deposited into his account at the prison store. Particular attention is drawn to the visitor list. 897 visits in 3 years, an absolute record for the U.S. penitentiary system. Among the visitors are known crime bosses, politicians, Hollywood stars. According to the prison administration, some meetings lasted up to 6 hours, although the maximum allowed time is 2 hours. In prison, Tyson undergoes a strange transformation. He converts to Islam and takes the name Malik Abdul Aziz. But his religious explorations are not limited to traditional Islam. Prison priests note his obsession with the occult. Books on black magic, drawings of pentagrams, and strange Arabic writings are found in his cell. Psychiatric reports from that period paint a disturbing picture. Doctors record deep personality changes, delusions of grandeur, and signs of split consciousness. Tyson spends hours talking to himself, drawing strange symbols on the walls, refusing to sleep with the lights off. But the most interesting things are happening outside the prison. Even while behind bars, Tyson continues to earn millions. His name is used in advertising, video games, and merchandise. According to Forbes, over the 3 years of his imprisonment, his brand brings in over $100 million. However, most of this money disappears into a complex network of offshore companies. An audit in 1994 reveals a shocking scheme. Don King created a system of 23 shell companies through which Tyson's money passed. Each transaction was subject to a commission of 15 to 30%. By the time the money reached the boxer's official accounts, only a third remained. During the same period, strange things begin to happen to people associated with Tyson's case. 2 key witnesses in the rape case die in car accidents within 1 month. The security guard at the Canterbury Hotel who testified against Tyson dies of a heroin overdose. Although all his acquaintances claim he never used drugs. A journalist investigating the boxer's financial fraud disappears after visiting the prison. Prison records note another interesting fact. In 3 years of imprisonment, Tyson never once gets involved in fights or conflicts. In the prison environment, where violence is the norm, this raises suspicions. Later, one inmate will tell that everyone in the prison knew. Whoever messes with Tyson won't live to see the morning. In March 1995, Tyson is released after serving 3 years. But this is a different person. Psychiatrists note a complete transformation of personality. His gaze becomes detached, his speech confused. He speaks of himself in the third person and often refers to voices in his head. Tyson's financial state at the time of his release raises many questions. Of the former $300 million, less than 50 remains. The tax service discovers an unpaid tax liability of $13 million. But the strangest thing is Tyson's new expenses. He buys a collection of medieval torture devices, orders a special crypt at the cemetery, spends hundreds of thousands on crystals and amulets. In his entourage appears a mysterious figure, a spiritual advisor from Haiti, known for his ties to voodoo cults. Surveillance cameras in Tyson's new estate capture strange nightly rituals. Neighbors report missing pets and eerie sounds at night. Sports analysts note cardinal changes in Tyson's technique. His former scientific style is replaced by something primal, almost animalistic. During training, he ignores defense, deliberately takes punches, as if testing the limits of pain. Medical examinations reveal alarming changes. His testosterone levels are 5 times the norm. An MRI shows abnormalities in the frontal lobes of the brain. Doctors suspect the influence of unknown drugs, but Tyson refuses further studies. All this will become the prologue to the most scandalous period in his career, which will culminate in the infamous fight with Evander Holyfield. March 1995, Las Vegas. Mike Tyson returns to the ring after 3 years in prison. His first fight with Peter McNeely lasted 89 seconds. For the audience, it looked like a triumphant return of the king. But people from Tyson's inner circle saw alarming signs. According to the training camp, the preparation for the fight was accompanied by strange incidents. Tyson refused to train until sunset. Dead birds with severed heads were found in the locker room. Strange symbols appeared on the walls, drawn in something resembling blood. 3 sparring partners left the camp, citing unacceptable training methods. Financial documents from that period show a shocking picture. In the 6 months after his release, Tyson spent $27 million. Among the purchases, a collection of rare African masks for $3 million, antique books on black magic for $800,000, live tigers and lions at a cost of $250,000 per month to maintain. Particular attention is drawn to regular transfers of large sums to accounts in Haiti and Nigeria, countries known for their occult practices. November 1996. The first fight with Evander Holyfield. Bookmakers record strange activity. 24 hours before the fight, the odds change drastically. Suddenly, huge sums are being bet on Holyfield to win. Later, the FBI will discover that most of these bets were made by people associated with organized crime. Tyson loses the fight by technical knockout in the 11th round, but experts' attention is drawn not to the result itself, but to the boxer's behavior. Video recordings show him periodically freezing in the middle of the fight, as if listening to something. His eyes often focus on an empty corner of the ring. Later, one of the cornermen will tell that Tyson spent the whole night before the fight talking to an invisible interlocutor. Preparation for the second fight with Holyfield turns into a real thriller. According to eyewitnesses, Tyson performs strange rituals. A group of Haitian priests appears at his training camp. They conduct hours-long ceremonies behind closed doors. Local residents report strange sounds at night and the disappearance of pets. June 28, 1997. The second fight with Holyfield goes down in history as the bite fight. In the 3rd round, Tyson twice bites Holyfield's ears, tearing off a piece of cartilage. But few know what was happening behind the scenes of this scandal. According to the Las Vegas police, a week before the fight, a meeting of the biggest crime bosses in the U.S. took place in the city. Representatives of all the major mafia families were present. The topic of the meeting remains unknown, but after it, huge bets on Tyson's disqualification appear on the totalizators. Tyson's medical examination after the fight reveals strange things. Traces of unknown substances are found in his blood. Analysis shows a mixture of stimulants, hallucinogens, and substances used in voodoo rituals. Experts suggest that his consciousness was altered under the influence of these drugs. The consequences of the bite fight proved catastrophic. The Nevada State Athletic Commission revokes Tyson's license and fines him $3 million. But the real problems begin outside the ring. Over the next few months, people around Tyson begin to die. One of his bodyguards, who threatened to reveal the truth about the fight, crashes his car on a straight road in broad daylight. Examination reveals that the brake system was deliberately damaged. A journalist investigating the possible connection of the fight with organized crime disappears. His dictaphone with interview recordings is found at the bottom of Lake Mead. A financial audit in 1998 reveals a shocking picture. Of the $400 million earned by Tyson over his career, less than 30 remain. The investigation reveals a complex scheme of embezzlement through a network of 32 front companies in 7 countries. Don King created a system where every Tyson dollar passed through 5 or 6 intermediaries, leaving a commission at each stage. Tyson's mental state rapidly deteriorates. Security reports regular fits of rage during which he smashes everything around him. In his mansion, a room is found with walls completely covered in strange symbols. According to the staff, he spends hours there talking to the spirits of past champions. 1999 brings new problems. During a fight in a road rage incident, Tyson hits an elderly man. The court sentences him to 1 year in prison. But here's the interesting thing. The surveillance camera recordings from the scene mysteriously disappear. Witnesses suddenly change their testimonies. Police reports are rewritten retroactively. In prison, Tyson again immerses himself in the occult. Prison priests report strange rituals in his cell. Drawings of pentagrams and African voodoo symbols appear on the walls. Guards hear eerie chants in the middle of the night. 3 inmates who had conflicts with Tyson suddenly fall into an inexplicable psychosis. Returning to freedom, Tyson begins to spend money with renewed vigor. Financial reports from 2000 to 2002 show insane expenses. $2 million for a collection of rare pigeons. $1.5 million for ordering his own sarcophagus in the Egyptian style. $800,000 for a shaman from Nigeria. $3 million for the construction of an underground bunker with protection from dark forces. In 2002, before the fight with Lennox Lewis, a series of strange incidents occur. At the hotel where Tyson is staying, guests report sounds of drums in the middle of the night. Maids find remnants of ritual animal sacrifices. At the press conference, Tyson declares that he will eat Lewis's children. Later he will explain that these were not his words, but the voices in his head. The fight with Lewis becomes the last major bout in Tyson's career. Defeat by knockout in the 8th round. But experts note Tyson's strange behavior. Video recordings show him periodically looking into an empty corner of the ring and nodding, as if receiving instructions from someone invisible. 2003. Tyson officially declares bankruptcy. The debt amounts to $23 million. The tax service discovers unpaid taxes for the last 10 years. But the most interesting thing is the investigation shows that a significant part of Tyson's money was used to finance illegal bare-knuckle fights in underground clubs in Las Vegas. Police raids reveal a network of illegal establishments where fights to the death are held. According to informants, Tyson was a frequent guest at these places. He made huge bets and often showed up there in a strange state, under the influence of unknown substances, mumbling something about sacrifices to the spirits of boxing. By 2004, almost nothing remains of Tyson's former empire. Estates sold for debts, tigers transferred to zoos, rarity collections auctioned off. But the scariest thing is the complete degradation of the personality of the former champion. 2005. Officially, Mike Tyson ends his professional career. But behind the scenes begins an even more spine-chilling story. Police reports from that period reveal the existence of a network of underground boxing clubs where bare-knuckle fights are held. And the main star of these establishments becomes the former world champion. According to the FBI, these fights took place in abandoned warehouses in Las Vegas and in the basements of casinos. Bets started at $1 million. Fights often ended in serious injuries and sometimes death. Tyson was not just a spectator. He personally trained fighters for these matches. Financial documents show a complex money laundering scheme through these underground fights. According to experts, the monthly turnover was about $50 million. The money passed through a network of front companies registered in the Cayman Islands and Panama. 2008 brings a new twist. In the suburbs of Las Vegas, police discover a secret training center. According to informants, fighters were being prepared there for underground fights. Medical documents found at the site indicate the use of experimental drugs. Some of them were banned, even for laboratory research. Particular attention is drawn to a series of disappearances of young fighters in 2009 to 2010. 5 promising boxers vanish without a trace after attending private training sessions with Tyson. Police find their personal belongings in the desert near Las Vegas. The cases still remain unsolved. In 2010, Tyson unexpectedly appears in Thailand. According to local police, he visits remote temples and meets with masters of ancient martial arts. During this period, $5 million disappear from his bank accounts. The money is transferred to accounts of secret societies practicing black magic. 2012 becomes a turning point. Tyson launches his show, Mike Tyson, Undisputed Truth. But behind the scenes, strange things are happening. 3 show producers suddenly quit, citing unacceptable working methods. One of them will later write in a private letter about eerie rituals and incomprehensible meetings in the middle of the night. In parallel, Tyson develops his cannabis business. Ranch Companies officially produces legal marijuana, but a journalistic investigation reveals disturbing facts. Illegal migrants, including minors, work on the plantations. According to former employees, part of the farm's territory is closed even to senior staff. Strange sounds often come from there at night. 2015 brings new puzzles. An underground bunker is being built on Tyson's ranch, officially for product storage. But blueprints that have leaked to the press show a strange configuration of rooms resembling ancient Aztec temples. Builders talk about finds of strange artifacts and human bones during excavations. The period from 2016 to 2018 is marked by a series of mysterious events around Tyson's cannabis business. The tax service records strange discrepancies. Official product sales amount to $20 million a year, but 4 times as much passes through the company's accounts. The money disappears into a network of offshore companies registered in the Caymans and Belize. Particular attention is drawn to the regular flights of Tyson's private jet to remote regions of Mexico and Colombia, officially for the purchase of rare cannabis strains. But radars record that the plane often deviates from the declared route and lands in areas known for drug cartel activity. 2019, a closed zone of 20 hectares appears on Tyson's ranch. Satellite images show strange circular structures resembling ancient ritual buildings. Local residents report unusual light phenomena at night and sounds resembling ritual drums. 3 journalists who tried to investigate this story suddenly change jobs and refuse to communicate with the press. 2020 brings new mysteries. Tyson returns to the ring for an exhibition fight with Roy Jones Jr., but experts' attention is drawn not so much to the fight itself as to the training process. According to eyewitnesses, the preparation included strange rituals using animal blood. In the locker room before the fight, mysterious symbols drawn on the walls are found. 2021 to 2022. Tyson launches a line of psychedelic mushrooms under the Toad brand. Officially, the product is positioned as legal supplements for meditation, but an investigation reveals that the formula contains banned components that cause strong hallucinations. 3 cases of hospitalization after using these supplements are quickly hushed up. 2023 becomes a year of strange transformations. Tyson's behavior becomes increasingly eccentric. In interviews, he talks about communicating with the spirits of deceased boxers. New tattoos with occult symbols appear on his body. Security reports nightly monologues with invisible interlocutors. Today, looking at Mike Tyson's smiling face in his cannabis business ads or interviews, it's hard to believe all these eerie stories. But the facts speak for themselves. Behind the mask of a successful businessman and reformed sinner hides a man whose life is full of dark secrets. And while the world prepares for the upcoming match, the main question arises: what is really happening behind the scenes of Iron Mike's empire? How many more secrets does the former champion hide? And will this fight not become the beginning of a new round of mysterious events? Perhaps we will never know the whole truth. But one thing can be said for sure: the story of Mike Tyson is not just the story of a boxer. It's a tale of how fame and money can turn a person into their own dark version. And it seems that the scariest chapters of this story are still ahead. He is called a genius and a destroyer, a visionary and a madman. Kanye West is one of the most controversial figures in modern culture, whose journey from music producer to billionaire is marked by both stunning highs and shocking scandals. What lies behind the mask of the eccentric genius? Where is the line between creative provocation and mental disorder? How did a talented musician turn into a man who publicly expresses admiration for Hitler and is accused of sexual violence? This investigation reveals the dark side of West's empire, from toxic relationships and domestic violence to anti-Semitic statements and support for authoritarian regimes. Drawing on court documents, testimonies from former employees and close associates, we will trace how untreated bipolar disorder combined with unchecked power and influence has created one of the most dangerous figures in modern show business. This is a story about how genius borders on madness, how childhood traumas grow into violence, and how society finds itself powerless in the face of the toxic influence of a man who has millions of devoted followers. Who is he really, Kanye West? Creative genius or dangerous manipulator? Victim of mental illness or calculating provocateur? Kanye Omari West was born on June 8, 1977 in Atlanta, Georgia, to Donda and Ray West. His mother was an English professor at Clark Atlanta University, and his father was a former Black Panther who later became the first African-American photojournalist at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. When Kanye was 3 years old, his parents divorced. This became the first serious trauma in the life of the future musician. After the divorce, Donda moved with Lil Kanye to Chicago, where she got a position as the chair of the English department at Chicago State University. This move defined Kanye's further life path, immersing him in the cultural environment that shaped his creative personality. Kanye's relationship with his mother was special and extremely close. Donda West didn't just raise her son. She became his first manager, critic, and most devoted supporter. She noticed her son's creative abilities early on and nurtured them in every way. Kanye often accompanied his mother to her university classes, which formed his early interest in education and literature. In 3rd grade, Donda discovered her son's talent for poetry and began encouraging him to write poems. She paid him $1 for each poem he wrote, thus instilling not only a love for creativity, but also an understanding of its commercial value. This early experience later played an important role in shaping his approach to the music business. As a child, Kanye showed extraordinary abilities in various fields. At 7, he started drawing and selling his drawings. By 3rd grade, he was already writing his own songs, and in 7th grade, he started rapping. His mother recalled that he always was very purposeful and confident in his talent. An important period was his stay in China as part of an educational exchange program when he was 10 years old. Donda, who was teaching there under the Fulbright program, took her son with her. This experience significantly broadened young Kanye's worldview and influenced his further perception of cultural differences. West's teenage years were spent in the south side of Chicago, where he attended Polaris High School. Here, he met producer Noid, who became his first mentor in music. It was during this period that Kanye began seriously engaging in music production, creating his first group, State of Mind. Contrary to stereotypes about rappers, Kanye was a good student and received high grades. His mother insisted on the importance of education, and after graduating from high school, he even received a creative scholarship to the American Academy of Art. However, after just one semester, Kanye dropped out, deciding to fully devote himself to music, which became the cause of his first serious conflict with his mother. In 1997, he met producer Doug Infinite, who taught him to sample old soul records, which later became West's signature sound. Together, they founded Kanye's first production company. During this period, he began selling beats to local artists, gradually building his reputation in the Chicago music industry. The turning point came when his beats were heard by D-Dot, one of the producers at Bad Boy Entertainment. This led to West's move to New York in 2000, where he began working at Rockefeller Records. Initially, he was known exclusively as a producer, creating hits for Jay-Z and other artists on the label. But West's ambitions were much greater than just producing. He dreamed of a career as a rapper, but faced constant rejections from labels that saw him only as a producer. The situation changed after a serious car accident in October 2002, when he recorded the song Through the Wire with his jaw wired shut. This song became his breakthrough as a performer. A special role in the formation of West's personality was played by his complex relationship with his father. Although after the divorce, Ray didn't take an active part in raising his son, he remained an important figure in his life. As an adult, Kanye often mentioned that he inherited his entrepreneurial spirit and independent thinking from his father. West's early years were marked by a constant desire to prove his exceptionality. Even as a child, he showed signs of narcissism and grandiose thinking, which later became defining features of his public image. His mother recalled that he always considered himself special and wasn't afraid to state it. An important aspect of his formation was growing up in an academic environment due to his mother's profession. This gave him access to a wide range of knowledge and cultural influences, which were later reflected in his music. At the same time, the constant pressure to meet his mother's high expectations could have been one of the factors that influenced the development of his psychological issues. 2016 was a turning point in the public recognition of Kanye West's mental health issues. After a series of unpredictable performances and the sudden cancellation of his St. Pablo tour, he was hospitalized in the psychiatric unit of UCLA Medical Center with a diagnosis of temporary psychosis triggered by exhaustion. However, this was only a public manifestation of a much deeper problem, bipolar disorder, which the musician had been hiding for years. In 2018, on the cover of his album Ye, West wrote, "I hate being bipolar, it's awesome," openly acknowledging his diagnosis for the first time. In the lyrics of the album, he described in detail his experience of living with this disorder, including manias, depressions, and paranoid episodes. West's bipolar disorder is characterized by extreme mood swings. During manic episodes, he demonstrates excessive activity, grandiose ideas, and impulsive behavior. This manifests in hours-long tirades at concerts, chaotic posts on social media, and radical business decisions. During such periods, he can go days without sleep, work on several projects simultaneously, and make provocative public statements. Depressive episodes, on the contrary, are characterized by deep despair and isolation. During such periods, West often disappears from the public eye, cancels performances, and withdraws from his family. In 2020, during his presidential campaign, he publicly burst into tears while talking about how he had thought about aborting his first child, which was a manifestation of emotional instability. A particular difficulty in treatment is caused by West's refusal to regularly take prescribed medications. According to him, the drugs dull his creativity and prevent him from being himself. He has repeatedly stated that his bipolar disorder is not a disease, but a superpower that allows him to be creative. The death of his mother in 2007 was a traumatic event that significantly worsened his mental state. Donda West died from complications after cosmetic surgery, which Kanye himself paid for. This created a deep sense of guilt in him that he still hasn't overcome. In many of his songs, he returns to the theme of losing his mother and his sense of responsibility for her death. Paranoid episodes are often accompanied by conspiracy theories. West has repeatedly stated that the industry is trying to kill him, accused his loved ones of trying to place him in a psychiatric hospital, and claimed that his medications are a way to control him. His ex-wife, Kim Kardashian, made a rare public statement about West's mental state in 2020, explaining the complexity of living with a person suffering from bipolar disorder. She described how the family often feels helpless because they can't force an adult to seek help or take medication. Professional psychiatrists analyzing West's public behavior note the classic symptoms of type I bipolar disorder: grandiose thinking, accelerated speech, impulsive decisions, and a lack of awareness of the consequences of his actions during manic episodes. His public appearances often demonstrate a flight of ideas, rapid jumping between unrelated topics, which is a characteristic sign of mania. Particularly dangerous are periods when manic episodes are accompanied by psychotic symptoms. At such moments, West can lose touch with reality, demonstrate paranoid thinking, and make increasingly extreme statements. His anti-Semitic remarks and support for radical political ideas often coincide with such episodes. The lack of stable treatment leads to episodes becoming more intense and frequent. Psychiatrists warn that without proper medical intervention, the condition can progressively worsen, leading to increasingly serious consequences for both West himself and his environment. His case has become an important example of how mental illness affects not only the patient but also his family, career, and society as a whole. The public nature of his struggle with bipolar disorder has drawn attention to mental health issues in the Black community, where this topic often remains taboo. It's important to understand that all subsequent scandals and controversial actions by West must be viewed through the prism of his mental state. His anti-Semitic statements, political remarks, public conflicts, and business decisions are often a direct manifestation of untreated bipolar disorder, not just eccentricity or a search for attention. Kanye became world famous in part due to his hyped-up conflict with Taylor Swift. The story of the conflict between Kanye West and Taylor Swift, which began at the MTV Video Music Awards in 2009, has become one of the most toxic confrontations in modern pop culture. What started as a one-time incident grew into a years-long campaign of bullying and manipulation. It all began when West snatched the microphone from the hands of 19-year-old Swift during her acceptance speech for Best Female Video. Interrupting her speech, he declared that Beyoncé's video, Single Ladies, was one of the best videos of all time. This stunt sparked instant outrage from the public, including then US President Barack Obama, who called West a jackass. Although West initially apologized on his blog and then publicly on The Jay Leno Show, his subsequent actions demonstrated a lack of genuine remorse. In a 2013 interview with the New York Times, he stated that he didn't regret the 2009 incident, revealing his true stance. The situation escalated in 2015 when West displayed particularly manipulative behavior. According to Swift, he called her with a request to present him with the Vanguard Award at the 2015 VMAs, engaging in an hour-long conversation about the importance of this moment. However, at the ceremony itself, he publicly accused MTV of using Swift to boost ratings, demonstrating his two-facedness. The most toxic stage of the conflict began in 2016 with the release of West's song Famous, where he used demeaning lines about Swift. "I feel like me and Taylor might still have sex. Why? I made that bitch famous." The situation worsened with the release of the music video, which featured a naked wax figure of Swift without her consent. West's wife, Kim Kardashian, joined the bullying by publishing selective parts of a phone conversation between West and Swift, creating the impression that the singer had approved the lyrics. This led to a massive internet harassment campaign against Swift, who later spoke about this period in her documentary, Miss Americana. Swift responded with a post on social media, noting that West had never told her about his intention to call her that bitch and hadn't let her hear the full version of the song. "I would very much like to be excluded from this narrative, one that I have never asked to be a part of since 2009, she wrote. In 2017, Swift released the album Reputation, where she reflected on her experience of public bullying. The song Look What You Made Me Do became a direct response to West and Kardashian's manipulations. The album had huge commercial success, selling over 1 million copies in its first week in the US. In 2018, West stated that the conflict with Swift had negatively impacted his relationships with radio stations and his mental health. However, his own actions, including constant provocations and manipulations, showed the systematic nature of his toxic behavior. In the summer of 2020, Kanye West made one of the most unexpected statements of his career, announcing his intention to run for US president. This statement became a vivid illustration of how the thin line between genius and madness can become blurred in the world of high-stakes politics. The rapper, who had previously been an outspoken supporter of Donald Trump, suddenly changed his position, stating in a Forbes interview that he was disappointed in the current president. The reason was quite specific. West was outraged by the fact that Trump hid in a bunker during protests. This decision to announce his own presidential ambitions was accompanied by a series of increasingly eccentric statements. The most revealing was his concept for a new administration, which, according to him, was to be based on the model of the fictional country of Wakanda from the movie Black Panther. Such a statement raised serious doubts about the adequacy of his political ambitions. However, the support of influential tech entrepreneur Elon Musk lent additional weight to this campaign in the media space. His controversial statements on racial issues drew particular attention. West stated that to say the black vote is democratic is racist and a form of white supremacy. At the same time, he openly admitted his readiness to take African American votes away from Democratic candidate Joe Biden, effectively helping Trump. In his campaign statements, West demonstrated a bizarre combination of populism and conspiracy theories. He opposed the COVID-19 vaccine, calling it the mark of the beast, although he himself claimed to have had coronavirus. However, he provided no evidence of his illness, but insisted that this experience should help him become president. His political platform, called the Birthday Party, seemed more like a spontaneous improvisation than a serious political project. West showed a disdainful attitude towards traditional political figures, stating, "Obama's special. Trump's special. We say Kanye West is special. America needs special people. Bill Clinton? Special. Joe Biden's not special." Media and political experts quickly accused the rapper of using his presidential campaign as a publicity stunt to promote his new album. West responded to this accusation with his characteristic extravagance, promising to give the album away for free. Particularly alarming were his statements about family planning, where he claimed that he was placed in cities by white supremacists to do the devil's work. Such statements raised serious concerns about his mental state and ability to adequately assess reality. This wasn't the first time West had announced presidential ambitions. Back in 2015, at the MTV Video Music Awards ceremony, he announced his intention to run in the 2020 election. However, at the time, this was perceived more as an outrageous gesture than a serious political statement. Despite the obvious impossibility of registering to participate in the 2020 election due to missed deadlines, West continued to insist on his chances of winning. This stubbornness, combined with increasingly eccentric statements, created the impression of a deep personal crisis masked as a political campaign. On December 1st, 2022, Kanye West made one of the most scandalous appearances of his career, appearing on the InfoWars show of notorious conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. Dressed in his signature black balaclava, which completely hid his face, the rapper shocked the audience with overt anti-Semitic statements and endorsements of Nazi ideology. "I like Hitler," this phrase from West, said live on air, instantly circulated in world media. The rapper didn't limit himself to simple approval of the Nazi leader, but launched into a whole argument in his defense. He invented the highways, invented the very microphone that I use as a musician. You can't say that this person ever did anything good. A particularly alarming moment came when West moved on to outright Holocaust denial. With a certainty that shocked even the show's host, he stated, "Hitler had really nice clothes, he was a good architect, he was a Christian, and he didn't kill 6 million Jews." That's factually incorrect. These words sounded especially cynical against the backdrop of numerous historical documents and testimonies confirming the scale of Nazi crimes. However, anti-Semitic rhetoric wasn't the only scandalous aspect of the appearance. When political commentator Nick Fuentes, known for his radical views, expressed support for Putin's regime and Russian aggression against Ukraine, West quickly joined this position, stating, "I agree." The culmination of the scandal was a Twitter post where West shared an image combining the Jewish Star of David with a swastika, a symbol of the Nazi regime. This provocation led to the instant blocking of his account on the social network. The appearance on InfoWars wasn't just another scandal in the rapper's career, but a turning point that led to serious consequences. Numerous brands and partners, including Adidas, Gap, and other companies, terminated their contracts with West. The music industry also reacted harshly. Many platforms restricted the availability of his content. A particular concern is the fact that West's statements came at a time of rising anti-Semitic sentiment worldwide. His words, given his multi-million audience and influence on youth, can contribute to the normalization of hate speech and extremist views. The combination of anti-Semitism with support for Putin's regime demonstrates the depth of West's radicalization. These are no longer just outrageous statements for attention, but a consistent position that threatens not only his own career but also public safety in general. Society's reaction to this appearance demonstrated that even superstar status cannot protect one from the consequences of promoting hatred. The loss of contracts and blocking on social media became a clear signal about the unacceptability of such rhetoric in the modern world. The story of Kim Kardashian and Kanye West's divorce revealed the dark side of one of the most high-profile marriages in show business. What began as a fairy tale love turned into a toxic relationship filled with public scandals, psychological abuse, and addictions. The first cracks in their relationship became noticeable after West's mental breakdown in 2016, when he was hospitalized due to nervous exhaustion. However, Kardashian continued to publicly support her husband, defending him from criticism and explaining his behavior with bipolar disorder. 2020 became a turning point for the couple. During his chaotic presidential campaign, West made several shocking statements, including revealing that he and Kim had considered aborting their first child. At a campaign rally in South Carolina, he broke down in tears while publicly telling this story, deeply offending Kardashian and her family. The situation worsened when West began posting a series of accusations against his wife and her family on Twitter. He claimed that Kardashian tried to lock him up in a psychiatric hospital, called his mother-in-law Kris Jong-un, alluding to the North Korean dictator, and stated that he had been trying to divorce Kim for 2 years. Particularly destructive to the marriage was West's obsession with pornography. According to insiders, he not only suffered from a serious addiction, but also tried to control Kim's appearance and behavior, projecting his fantasies onto her. This led to severe emotional abuse and humiliation. After moving to a ranch in Wyoming in 2020, West almost completely distanced himself from his family. Kardashian flew to him with the children, trying to save the family, but his behavior became increasingly unpredictable. He refused to take medication for his bipolar disorder, which led to regular manic episodes. On social media, West continued to publicly humiliate Kim even after she filed for divorce. He accused her of kidnapping their children, criticized her parenting methods, and tried to discredit her new relationship with Pete Davidson by publishing private messages and creating threatening videos. His behavior regarding the children was particularly concerning. West publicly criticized the decision to allow their eldest daughter North to use TikTok, accused Kim of over-sexualizing their children through the scheme's children's clothing line, and tried to ban the children from attending private school. Financial issues also became a source of conflict. Despite both being billionaires, West often publicly boasted about his wealth and belittled Kim's business achievements. He even tried to sabotage her collaborations with brands because of his anti-Semitic statements. The divorce process was accompanied by constant changes of lawyers on West's side. He changed 5 legal representatives, and his refusal to cooperate on property division and child custody issues. He missed depositions, refused to provide financial documents, and publicly threatened lawsuits. Kardashian, despite public humiliation, tried to shield the children from the toxicity of the situation. She consistently refused to publicly criticize West, calling him the father of my children and acknowledging his creative genius, even as he continued to attack her. The divorce was finalized in November 2022. Under the terms of the agreement, they received joint custody of the children, and West agreed to pay $200,000 per month in child support. However, even after the official divorce, he continued to cause problems by missing scheduled meetings with the children and publicly criticizing Kim's new relationships. The incident near Soho West Club in Los Angeles in January 2022 became another proof of Kanye West's uncontrollable aggressive behavior. In the early morning hours, around 3 a.m., a situation that began as a typical attempt by fans to photograph a celebrity escalated into an act of violence that attracted the attention of law enforcement. According to eyewitnesses and police investigation data, West repeatedly asked to stop photographing. When his requests were ignored, the rapper went from verbal demands to physical violence. Approaching the fan, he delivered 2 blows to the head and neck, causing the man to fall onto the asphalt. Particularly revealing was the moment captured on TMZ video, where West's inadequate reaction to his own cousin's attempts to calm the situation is seen. In the footage, the rapper aggressively yells at the woman, demanding that she get away from him, demonstrating a complete loss of self-control. The Los Angeles police classified this case as a criminal offense. Although the victim initially refused medical assistance, he later went to the hospital for examination. This fact added seriousness to the incident from a legal point of view. The event caused particular concern because it demonstrated West's inability to control his emotions even in the presence of loved ones and cameras. The fact that the rapper resorted to violence against a fan who simply wanted to photograph him indicates deep problems with anger management. The incident became part of a broader picture of West's problematic behavior. In previous years, the rapper had repeatedly demonstrated outbursts of aggression in public, disrupted concerts, and made scandalous statements. However, the Los Angeles case became the first documented instance of direct physical violence against a fan. The public reaction was mixed. Some fans tried to justify West's actions by the constant pressure of paparazzi and violation of his privacy. Others pointed to the unacceptability of physical violence regardless of the circumstances. Professional psychologists, commenting on the situation, noted signs of serious mental health problems. This case added a new chapter to the history of West's scandalous behavior, demonstrating how fame and constant attention can exacerbate destructive behavior patterns. It also raised serious questions about celebrities' responsibility for their actions and the boundaries between the right to privacy and public status. The event also became a reason for a broader discussion about celebrity culture and the toxic relationship between stars and their fans. Many experts noted that such incidents are a symptom of deeper problems in the modern entertainment industry, where the line between public and private life is often blurred. This case of on-camera violence became further evidence of how uncontrolled aggression can ruin not only a career, but also a person's life, regardless of their status and achievements. It also demonstrated the danger of ignoring signs of mental illness and the importance of timely professional help. October 2023 added another dark stroke to the portrait of one of the most famous rappers of our time. Lauren Piscata, Kanye West's former assistant, filed an expanded lawsuit in the Los Angeles County Superior Court, accusing the musician of sexual assault using prohibited substances. The collaboration between Piscata and West lasted from 2021 to 2022. During this period, according to court documents, the rapper systematically violated professional boundaries by sending the assistant pornographic materials, making inappropriate phone calls, and demonstrating aggressive behavior. One of the most disturbing incidents occurred at a San Francisco hotel in July 2021. At 6 in the morning, West began aggressively knocking on the door of Piscata's room, demanding to be let in under the pretext of a malfunctioning shower in his own room. According to the plaintiff's testimony, upon entering the room, the rapper intentionally dropped his towel and tried to press his naked body against her, ignoring requests to stop. After the incident, West apologized and continued the day as if nothing had happened. However, the most serious accusation was an incident at a recording studio where Sean Combs, P. Diddy, was also present. According to Pescata, West offered her a drink with an unknown substance. After consuming the drink, the woman felt disoriented, and the next day woke up with memory gaps and physical discomfort, unable to recall the events of the previous night. Notably, these accusations came against the backdrop of an already existing wrongful termination lawsuit. Pescata claims that her employment was terminated after she began expressing concerns about West's inappropriate behavior. The situation is complicated by the fact that the studio incident took place in the presence of Sean Combs, who is currently under investigation for serious charges of rape, racketeering, and human trafficking. Although Pescata is not making accusations against Combs, his presence adds additional resonance to the case. West's legal team, which had previously categorically denied previous accusations, is currently refraining from commenting on the new charges. This silence is particularly telling, given the rapper and his representatives' usually active public stance. This case has become part of a broader discussion about abuse of power in the music industry. Particularly important is the context in which assistants often find themselves in a vulnerable position due to the inequality of power relations and fear of losing their job in a highly competitive industry. The scandal around West is developing against the backdrop of a general rethinking of the culture of behavior in show business, where cases of abuse and harassment are being exposed more and more often. Pescata's case demonstrates how even the most influential figures in the industry can face serious legal consequences for unacceptable behavior. Particular attention is drawn to the fact that the accusations against West are emerging at a time when the rapper has already lost numerous contracts and partnerships due to his anti-Semitic statements and other scandalous remarks. This creates a picture of systematic problematic behavior, not an isolated incident. November 2024 brought new shocking accusations against Kanye West. Jen In, a participant in the show America's Next Top Model, filed a lawsuit revealing details of a 2010 incident that demonstrates the dark side of the rapper's personality. According to court documents published by People magazine, the events unfolded during the filming of the music video and For the Kill. Jen In, who was invited as a background actress, found herself in a situation where her professional vulnerability was used against her. Dressed only in revealing lingerie for the shoot, she became the object of West's predatory behavior. The details of the lawsuit reveal a horrifying picture of events. According to the plaintiff's testimony, West ordered everyone to leave the set after the phrase, "Give me this girl." What happened next was captured on camera under the pretext of filming for the video, but actually turned into an act of violence. Jen In's testimony describes a brutal assault. West began to choke me with one hand, then clasped the other and continued to choke me with both hands. Particularly disturbing is the description of how the rapper pressed his fingers into her throat, making repetitive motions, covering her mouth. The victim reports a feeling of temporary loss of consciousness and inability to breathe. After the assault, according to In, her face was covered in saliva and smeared makeup. Physical evidence of the violent act that left not only physical, but also deep psychological trauma. Particular attention in the case is drawn to the role of Universal Music Group, which In also accuses of complicity through inaction. According to her, she reported the incident, but the company refused to conduct an internal investigation, effectively covering up West's actions. The story of Kanye West is a complex lesson about the fine line between genius and madness. From the boy who wrote poems for $1 to the billionaire whose words can influence world markets and public opinion, he has walked a path that demonstrates both the enormous potential of the human spirit and its tragic vulnerability. Yes, we cannot ignore the dark side of his story, the anti-Semitic statements, instances of violence, toxic relationships, and manipulations. But it's important to understand that many of these actions took place under the influence of a severe mental illness that remained untreated. Bipolar disorder, exacerbated by the trauma of losing his mother and the pressure of constant public attention, played a fatal role in his downfall. Yet even through the darkness of his demons, the light of true genius breaks through. West has changed not only hip-hop culture, but also the very understanding of what an African-American artist can achieve. He blurred the lines between music and fashion, between art and commerce, between madness and innovation. As Steve Jobs said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." West, with all his contradictions and problems, embodies this truth. His story reminds us that the greatest breakthroughs in culture are often created by people who see the world differently, even if this vision sometimes borders on insanity. But it is also a cautionary tale about the importance of mental health and the danger of leaving mental disorders untreated. It shows how society often prefers spectacle over compassion, and how easily we can glorify someone's downfall instead of extending a helping hand. Kanye West remains a living embodiment of the paradox of creative genius, simultaneously a destroyer and a creator, a victim and a perpetrator, a genius and a madman. His story is a mirror that reflects both our highest aspirations and the darkest sides of human nature. Success often comes at a price. No one knows this better than the man who transformed the UFC into a multi-billion-dollar empire. The transformation of the UFC from an obscure organization into a global mixed martial arts empire is a captivating story of ambition, risk, and unwavering determination. At the center of this transformation stands the figure of Dana White, whose journey from a hotel bellman to a media mogul became the embodiment of the American dream. In the early 2000s, the UFC was teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. The sport of mixed martial arts elicited controversial reactions in society, with many states banning tournaments and television networks refusing to broadcast them. It was at this critical moment that Dana White, along with the Fertitta brothers, saw potential in the declining brand. Under White's leadership, the UFC turned into a true sports extravaganza. Each tournament became not just a competition, but a captivating show with well-thought-out dramaturgy, vibrant personalities, and an incredible atmosphere. The promotion began attracting the best fighters from around the world, creating legendary rivalries that gathered millions of viewers. But success did not come easily. White had to fight numerous challenges, from financial difficulties to skepticism from the sports community. His tough leadership style and uncompromising approach to negotiations often drew criticism. But it was this steadfastness that helped the UFC reach new heights. Today, the UFC is not just a sports organization, but a global media phenomenon with an estimated worth of over $10 billion. The promotion has contracts with the largest television networks, holds tournaments worldwide, and creates new sports stars. UFC fighters have become true celebrities, and their purses reach astronomical sums. But how did a simple hotel employee manage to conquer the world of martial arts? And what lies behind such success? Dana was born in Manchester, Connecticut, but grew up constantly moving around the country. His alcoholic father left the family, so the boy was raised by his mother, who worked excessively and could not give her son enough attention. "My sister and I were always left alone. When you grow up in such conditions, you learn a lot on your own. And honestly, I wouldn't change anything about my childhood. If it weren't for those circumstances, I would have never become who I am now. I'm 100% convinced of that." At school, Dana was a problematic student who wasn't too concerned about his studies. Instead, he constantly misbehaved and got into trouble. A particularly amusing incident happened at a Catholic school in Las Vegas. White's antics drove the nun teacher to madness. The school had huge metal doors that were always left open due to the heat. Once I went to the bathroom and slammed the door with all my might. It made the nun so angry that she couldn't finish the lesson. From then on, I slammed the doors every day until I was finally expelled from school. His hot temper led Dana into boxing. At 17, he began regularly visiting the gym, and within a year, he was actively participating in amateur tournaments. White dreamed of a professional career, but later abandoned that idea. Once a local boxer came to our gym. He wasn't even 30 yet, but he was already completely drunk. He could barely move, all battered. I thought then, damn it, what if that happens to me? And I realized, no, boxing is not for me. After school, Dana went to Boston. He enrolled in a local university, but quickly realized that higher education was not for him either. Leaving his studies in the first semester, White settled in South Boston, a poor neighborhood of Irish immigrant descendants. In the late 80s, this place was a true den of criminal gangs, whose tyranny Dana had to face personally. Once I walked into a bar and got into a fight, they ganged up on me and started beating me. They beat the crap out of me for about 20 minutes until the police arrived. I remember standing on one knee, and some scumbag was hitting me in the ear probably 1,000 times. Because of that incident, I partially lost my hearing and then fought Meniere's disease for another 20 years. In South Boston, Dana took on any job. He drove cars, laid asphalt, threw drunks out of pubs. After changing many occupations, White got a job as a bellman at the posh Boston Harbor Hotel. Every day, he opened doors and carried suitcases, earning $100,000 a year. Many of his peers could only dream of such a job, but White wanted more. The bellman job brought in decent money, but I wasn't happy. Once I stopped in the middle of the hotel lobby and suddenly realized, what the hell am I doing here? This is not my thing at all, he said, and at that very moment, I decided to quit. A friend asked Dana what he was going to do, to which he heard an unexpected answer. I'm going into the fighting business. His buddy laughed, calling the idea crazy, and they parted ways. But White knew where his true calling was. Returning to Vegas, Dana White began his career as a boxing coach and fighter manager. Thanks to his natural charisma and persuasive skills, he quickly earned a reputation in the local fighting scene. But success attracted not only fans, but also dangerous enemies. Once after training, two burly guys approached Dana and, without further ado, stated, "Kevin Wiggs wants to talk to you." That name made the blood run cold. Everyone in South Boston knew that Kevin Wiggs was an Irish mafia enforcer who worked for the legendary gangster Whitey Bulger. At first, they wanted $5,000 as tribute. That was crazy money for me. White recalled, when I refused, the stakes rose to $2,500 a week. I refused again, so Wiggs promised that I would understand. That same day, I packed my bags and fled to Vegas to save my skin. In Sin City, Dana tracked down an old school friend, Lorenzo Fertitta. Lorenzo and his brother inherited a huge empire of casinos and hotels. So the failed bellman and the millionaire magnate seemed to be from different worlds. But despite the differences in wealth and education, they were united by a strong friendship and a shared passion, a love for martial arts. Sons of a legendary casino owner, the Fertitta brothers grew up in affluence, received a brilliant education at the best universities in the country, and under their father's wise guidance, turned into extremely successful businessmen. But despite their respectable status, Lorenzo and Frank remained sincere buddies who, in their hearts, forever remained simple guys. We loved boxing and went to all the big fights. Lorenzo shared his memories. And then we got into jiu-jitsu and started training. It was through the gym that we met wonderful fighters who introduced us to the world of mixed martial arts. The Fertittas were thrilled with the UFC, a young organization that sought to identify the most effective fighting style. Since 1993, the promotion had held a series of high-profile tournaments that gathered dedicated fans around the octagon. The brothers did not miss a single show and even flew to other cities for landmark events. I remember how we sat in the hall during the UFC and whispered to each other, "Dude, imagine if they did this and that. This thing can really take off and bring in crazy money." Frank laughed. They did not yet know that very soon fate would give them a chance not only to dream, but also to bring their ideas to reality. and it would be none other than Dana White who would help them with this. A new stage in the history of the UFC began with an unexpected decline. The tournaments of the organization, which surprised the world with spectacular no-holds-barred fights, began to lose viewers. But at UFC 27, two ardent fans were still sitting in the stands, believing in the stunning future of mixed martial arts. Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta came not just to watch the fights, but to evaluate the prospects of acquiring the company. Meanwhile, Dana White, who became a sports manager for promising fighters Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, began negotiations for new contracts with UFC owner Bob Meyrowitz. But the negotiations turned into a scandal. It turned out that Meyrowitz had cheated Ortiz and had not paid him the proper fee for a winning fight. I said that it wasn't right, that Tito should get his money. White was indignant. In response, Meyrowitz began yelling, saying there was no money, the company was barely making ends meet, and we were still demanding something. Then I understood everything. The UFC was in a desperate situation. Barely leaving the office of the infuriated Meyrowitz, Dana immediately called the Fertitta brothers. "It looks like the UFC is on the verge of bankruptcy," he blurted out without further ado. "I think we have an opportunity to buy the promotion." Lorenzo and Frank, who had long been harboring similar plans, instantly agreed. The unexpected call put Meyrowitz in a dead end. He realized that he had lost the trust of the leading fighters in the audience, and now he was also on the verge of financial collapse. But pride would not allow him to sell cheaply. "I will sell the UFC for $2 million and not a cent less," he said through gritted teeth. The Fertittas did not even bargain. A month later, the fateful deal took place. The brothers founded Zuffa LLC, Italian for Fight, and officially became the new owners of the UFC. They entrusted Dana White with the position of president and 10% of the company's shares. But the joy of realizing the dream quickly changed to a bitter realization of the scale of the problems. At the time of the purchase of the UFC for $2 million, the new owners received only contracts with 30 fighters, an old wooden octagon, and the rights to the promotion's name. The previous owner, Bob Meyrowitz, sold off everything of value: the archive of records, video game licenses, merch. Even the website domain was tied to third-party servers. Dana White had to build the business from scratch, promoting a sport that was banned on pay-per-view TV and in dozens of states. Dana is trying to promote a sport that is banned on TV in most states and on the international stage. The UFC was banned from pay-per-view while even porn gets paid for. UFC stars like Ken Shamrock and Mark Coleman are going into either wrestling or Japan, where the UFC's biggest competitor, Pride, was. Pride was filling stadiums in Japan, where mixed martial arts were more favorably received. They had the best fighters in the world, including Americans. To develop the business, Dana went to a bookstore and bought books on finance and promotion. He understood that his task was to convince people to stay at home on a Saturday after a hard week at school or work and pay $55 to watch a tournament instead of going to a bar, meeting girls, or taking their girlfriend out to dinner and a movie. The priority was to whitewash and legitimize the brand so that it would be perceived as a real sport. The UFC begins by adopting official rules that give the sport legitimacy. Lawrence Epstein, the UFC's chief operating officer, is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the company and travels to states and countries to get MMA approved. Joe Silva and Sean Shelby become the official UFC matchmakers, also working on scouting talent. To improve the quality of event production, the UFC produces its own television production, hiring experienced ESPN producer Bruce Connell as the lead producer and host of the show Fear Factor. The huge costs spent on all these efforts are starting to worry the Fertitta parents. The company is burning through about $44 million, but things are not taking off. The idea for the reality show, The Ultimate Fighter, was born in collaboration between Dana White and experienced producer Craig Piligian. The concept was simple. Fighters lived together under one roof, and compete for a UFC contract. When we bought the company, I couldn't even imagine that I would have to shoot a reality show. It took a lot of courage to agree to this. The Fertittas continued to suffer losses, and I came to them and frankly said, "Let's try to do the impossible." White recalls. The Ultimate Fighter became the organization's last hope. Everyone understood. If the show fails, it's the end. Dana approached many TV channels, but no one wanted to take the risk. Finally, White came to Spike TV with a desperate proposal. The Fertittas would personally finance the project. The TV channel only needed to provide airtime. The channel's management, which had repeatedly refused the UFC before, agreed this time. For them, it was a win-win situation. We paid for everything ourselves. They still doubted the quality of our product, but already the first episode gathered millions of viewers by the screens. These were impressive numbers, and with each new episode, the ratings only grew. The success of the show exceeded all expectations, but the real triumph was the final tournament. In the fight for a UFC contract, Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner put on an incredible show that ended with a standing ovation from the entire arena. This is the most important fight in the history of the company. It was watched live by 12 million viewers. These guys saved the UFC and the entire MMA industry. Without these two simple fighters, far from the most technical, there might have been nothing. Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner forever changed the sport. A week after the finale of The Ultimate Fighter, UFC 52 took place. The fight between the show's coaches, Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture, sold 300,000 pay-per-views, doubling the promotion's previous record. Riding the wave of success, the UFC signed a multi-million-dollar contract with Spike TV, and the reality show was renewed for another season. The organization emerged from the crisis. During these 5 years, we went through many trials. People doubted us, but we continued to believe in our cause. Hundreds of authoritative businessmen and journalists said that we would not succeed, but time and perseverance put everything in its place. We turned out to be right, and they were wrong. Such is the reality. You have to take risks and believe, otherwise you will not achieve anything. From 2005, the UFC began to develop rapidly, but in parallel, other companies gained momentum. The main competitors were considered to be Pride, WEC, and Strikeforce, but White and the Fertittas were not going to share the market. Over the course of 5 years, they bought out all 3 leagues, spending over $100 million. The UFC roster was replenished with dozens of talented prospects and world stars. The organization effectively monopolized the MMA market. We were not afraid of competition, but made these acquisitions due to the need for global expansion. Every year we continued to grow, entered new markets, and appeared in new countries. In such a situation, you have to be sure that you have enough tournaments and fighters to interest fans in all corners of the world. In the late 2000s, the UFC was experiencing an unprecedented rise. Arenas were packed to capacity, sponsorship contracts multiplied, and pay-per-view numbers steadily increased. The culmination of success was the anniversary tournament UFC 100, headlined by the title rematch between sworn rivals Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir. The fight sold 1.6 million pay-per-views, and in one night brought the promotion over $80 million. UFC 100 showed that MMA had become a popular and in-demand sport that would soon be able to stand alongside such giants as the NFL, NBA, and MLB. When we were just starting out, I couldn't even imagine that there would come a day when we would be able to sell at least 1 million PPVs. That evening we broke another record, but it was only the beginning. On the wave of mass popularization of MMA, in 2011 the UFC signed a contract with the Fox television network. The term of the deal was 7 years, and the total amount exceeded $700 million. From now on, tournaments were broadcast in 130 countries and 20 languages of the world. This was a historic deal for the entire fighting industry. which for the first time allowed mixed martial arts to enter millions of televisions around the planet. Over the next 5 years, the UFC made a colossal breakthrough. The promotion opened up many new stars who helped take the industry to a qualitatively new level. 8 numbered tournaments surpassed the million PPV sales mark, and the company's partners became exclusively global brands. In 2015, the organization's roster included over 600 fighters representing more than 60 countries. Just imagine, in these 15 years, martial arts have progressed more than in the previous 10,000 years. This is all thanks to the UFC. Now we held tournaments in a wide variety of parts of the world, and our events were watched by tens of millions of fans. We turned MMA into a sport that the whole world loves and watches. Everything was going its way, but in early 2016, rumors suddenly appeared about a possible sale of the UFC. At first, Dana denied these reports, but already in November it became known that the media holding company of Hollywood agent Audi, Emmanuel WMG, had acquired the promotion for $4 billion. As a result of the deal, the Fertitta brothers sold all their shares and exited the business. White retained a 9% stake and remained the company's president. As soon as we completed the deal, I went into a daze. I locked myself in a hotel room where I could neither eat nor sleep for almost 3 days. When you receive such money and say goodbye to partners with whom you have worked for 15 years, it is difficult to adapt to the new reality. I could have left, but I never did it for the money. I truly love this sport, so I stayed in the business. With the arrival of new owners, the future of the UFC was called into question, but the very next year showed that the state of the company had only improved. The promotion was able to organize a series of high-profile tournaments, and in 2018, the biggest fight in MMA history took place. The scandalous confrontation between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor gathered 2.4 million PPVs and set a new promotion record. Riding the wave of such success, the UFC signed a deal with the largest U.S. sports broadcaster ESPN for 5 years. The contract amount was $1.5 billion. In the first year of cooperation with ESPN, the UFC demonstrated the best ratings in history, but then the pandemic began. Production falls by 80%, but the UFC does not lay off people. In the first 4 months of the year, the UFC holds only 8 tournaments out of 42. Dana White decides to rent an island in Abu Dhabi to hold events. This allows keeping the sport on the air when everything else is closed. And as a result, the UFC's fan base grows by 46%. The UFC enters the top 4 largest sports in the USA. The UFC's success is largely due to Dana White's personality. He does not embellish things, but speaks as it is, and people like it. Dana constantly tells young people and his children that even a small display of savagery will allow them to outrun many. He himself grew up without a father, and his mother often told him that he would not achieve anything in life. But Dana loves chaos and created it himself if there was none. The success story and personality of Dana still hide a lot behind the scenes. New Year's Eve 2023. Mexican nightclub. What happened next shocked the whole world. On New Year's Eve in a Mexican nightclub, White quarreled with his wife Anna. The video of the conflict hit the net and caused outrage because it shows Anna slapping her husband, and he hit her several times in response. This is especially unacceptable, given that White himself had previously publicly condemned violence against women. In a comment to TMZ, White apologized for the incident, explaining that he and his wife have been together for almost 30 years and have gone through many trials. He admitted that his actions are unacceptable and said that now he and Anna are focused on their family and children. But the most shocking revelations came from an unexpected source, from Dana's own mother. My son has turned into a vindictive tyrant. Power and money have changed him. From a boy from a dysfunctional family to an influential businessman who has lost touch with reality. Despite a public apology, this incident forever changed the public's perception of Dana White. The man who built an empire on selling fights himself became the main character of the most shameful fight in his life. This unfortunate case casts a shadow on the reputation of Dana White and the UFC, which positions itself as a respectable sports organization. It once again proves that behind the scenes of loud success, personal problems and shortcomings of even the most influential people are often hidden. Dana White's story is a classic example of American success, but with a deep cautionary subtext. It shows how ambition, perseverance, and courage can turn a simple guy from a disadvantaged family into one of the most influential figures in the world of sports. At the same time, it is a story about how success and power can change a person, not always for the better. Starting his journey as an ordinary hotel bellman, White was able to see the potential in the declining UFC business. His partnership with the Fertitta brothers became a turning point not only for the company, but for the entire mixed martial arts industry. They bought the UFC for $2 million when the organization was on the verge of bankruptcy and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar empire. The key factor of success was Dana's ability to make bold decisions at critical moments. The creation of the reality show The Ultimate Fighter, when the company was already losing millions, was a risky move that ultimately saved the UFC. The legendary final fight between Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar became a turning point that opened MMA to a mass audience. Under White's leadership, the UFC went from a banned sport to a global phenomenon. The company overcame numerous obstacles: bans on television, resistance from the authorities, financial difficulties. Gradually, the UFC absorbed its main competitors, Pride, WEC, and Strikeforce, effectively monopolizing the MMA market. The conclusion of multi-million-dollar contracts with Fox and then with ESPN, expansion in international markets, setting new PPV sales records. All this testified to the incredible success of the organization. Even during the pandemic, when most sporting events were canceled, the UFC found a way to continue holding tournaments by creating Fight Island in Abu Dhabi. However, behind this success lies a dark side. Accusations of monopoly and low payouts to fighters cast a shadow on the organization's reputation. White's personal scandals, especially the incident with his wife, show how power and success can negatively affect a person's character. Dana's mother's words that her son turned into a vindictive tyrant are particularly telling. They emphasize how far White has come from his roots, from the boy from a dysfunctional family who once dreamed of a better fate. Power and money seem to have changed his personality, and not always for the better. The history of the UFC under White's leadership demonstrates that success in business does not always correlate with personal growth. One can achieve incredible heights professionally, but lose touch with reality and one's moral principles. This story also reminds us that behind every great success lie not only ambition and hard work, but also compromises that a person makes with their own conscience. The path from a simple bellman to a billionaire often requires sacrifices, and not always material ones. However, one cannot deny Dana White's huge influence on the development of mixed martial arts. Thanks to his vision and perseverance, MMA has gone from a marginal spectacle to one of the most popular sports in the world. Under his leadership, the UFC has created thousands of jobs, opened the path to success for hundreds of talented fighters, and brought joy to millions of fans around the world. Dana White's story is a complex interweaving of triumph and tragedy, success and downfall. It reminds us that true success is measured not only by the figures in a bank account or the scale of influence, but also by the ability to remain true to one's principles and not lose humanity on the way to the top. This is a story about how even the most successful people are not immune to mistakes, and that true strength of character is manifested not in achieving success, but in how a person manages that success. If you enjoyed this fascinating success story and want to learn more interesting facts from the world of sports and business, be sure to subscribe to the Detective Brooks channel. There you will find even more unique investigations and exciting stories. He created the largest private space company, revolutionized the automotive industry, and became the wealthiest person in the world. However, documents, testimonies from former employees, and insider sources reveal a completely different Elon Musk. Sexual harassment of female employees, a toxic work environment with fatalities, cryptocurrency market manipulation that led to billions of dollars in losses for investors, secret ties to Putin, and influence on American elections. This is just the tip of the iceberg of his true activities. Today, we will reveal how the son of a South African businessman turned into the most influential and dangerous person of our time. How, under the slogans of saving humanity, he created an unprecedented surveillance system through Tesla cars, used workers as slaves, and built an empire that threatens democratic institutions around the world. In this investigation, you will learn the shocking truth about a man who can determine the fate of entire nations with a single tweet and manipulate global politics for his own benefit. The story of Elon Musk is a story about how technology and money turn into absolute power, and dreams of conquering Mars conceal much more dangerous earthly ambitions. Born on June 28, 1971, in Pretoria, the capital of the Republic of South Africa, Elon Reeve Musk came into the world during the harshest period of apartheid. His mother, May Musk, née Haldeman, was a successful model and dietitian of Canadian origin, whose career began at the age of 15 and continues to this day. Elon's maternal grandparents were among the first space explorers in North America, which later significantly influenced his passion for space technology. The future entrepreneur's early childhood took place in an atmosphere of intellectual stimulation. At the age of 3, he was already reading, and by the age of 6, he had mastered the basics of mathematics. May often took her son to fashion shows and advertising shoots, where he observed the work of photographers and lighting technicians, sparking his early interest in the technical side of process organization. Studying at Watercliff House Preparatory School turned out to be a difficult period. Little Elon suffered from Asperger's syndrome, which complicated his social adaptation. He could spend hours immersed in his own thoughts, not noticing the outside world, which often irritated teachers. His classmates did not understand his obsession with scientific journals and encyclopedias, which he brought to school instead of comics. At the age of 9, Musk first visited a computer store in Johannesburg, where he saw the Commodore PET. This was a turning point. He spent 3 days studying the programming manual until the store staff asked him to leave. A year later, his parents bought him his first computer, understanding their son's unusual fascination with technology. Elon's teenage years coincided with his parents' divorce in 1980. He chose to live with his father, partly because he felt sorry for him, and partly because of the opportunity to have more freedom for his technical experiments. In the garage of his father's house, he created a primitive laboratory where he conducted chemical experiments and assembled homemade rockets from parts purchased at the local market. At Bryanston High School, which Musk entered in 1984, he faced brutal bullying. Once, a group of bullies pushed him down the stairs, causing a serious injury that left him in the hospital for a week. This incident forced him to take up karate and jiu-jitsu, which later helped him resist bullies. The transition to Pretoria Boys High School in 1986 was an important stage in his education. Here he met a physics teacher who saw his potential and gave him additional assignments in programming and electronics. It was during this period that Musk developed the concept of his first business project, an arcade for teenagers. He even received preliminary approval from the city council, but could not implement it due to age restrictions. During his school years, Musk demonstrated an unusual approach to learning. Instead of traditional note-taking, he created detailed mental maps, connecting different subjects. This system allowed him to quickly assimilate new information and find non-obvious connections between different fields of knowledge. Young Elon often spent weekends at the local library, where he read science fiction and technical literature. The works of Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke had a particular influence on him. He kept a diary where he wrote down ideas for future inventions, including concepts of electric vehicles and satellite communication systems. At the age of 17, while preparing to move to Canada, Musk worked several low-paying jobs, including cleaning a boiler room, cutting wood, and even a short period on a farm near Saskatoon. These jobs gave him an understanding of the value of hard work and the importance of automating routine processes. This early period of Musk's life shaped his future approach to business and innovation. A combination of technical thinking with ambitious dreams, the ability to see opportunities where others see limitations, and a willingness to take risks to achieve a goal. His experience of living in South Africa during apartheid also influenced his understanding of social inequality and the importance of technological progress for improving human life. The widely circulated story that Elon Musk comes from a low-income family and rose to the top of the business world on his own is a carefully constructed PR narrative that does not correspond to reality. In fact, the future billionaire grew up in a privileged environment of a wealthy family in Pretoria, South Africa. His father, Elon Musk, was a successful engineer and influential businessman, co-owner of an emerald mine in Zambia. The family owned one of the largest houses in Pretoria, drove the most expensive cars of the time, and could afford an elite education for their children. Elon Musk not only provided his son with a comfortable childhood, but also became the first investor in his business endeavors, providing significant financial support for his move to Canada and education. It is noteworthy that at a young age, Elon had access to the most advanced computer technology of the time. At the age of 10, he received a personal Commodore VSC-20 computer, an expensive device at the time that was inaccessible to most of his peers. However, the story about independently creating and selling the blaster game at the age of 12 also requires significant clarification. According to eyewitnesses, the main programming work for the game was done by Musk's school friend, while Elon himself showed entrepreneurial skills by being able to profitably sell the finished product. This was the first manifestation of his talent for commercializing other people's developments, a pattern that would later be repeated in the story with Tesla, where Musk joined an already existing company founded by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. The privileged position of the Musk family was also evident in educational opportunities. Elon studied at a prestigious private school in Pretoria, and then was able to move first to Canada and later to the United States to continue his education without financial difficulties. Stories about surviving on $1 a day during his studies contradict the facts about regular financial support from his father. Musk's first serious business project, Zip2, was also launched with significant support from his father's capital. Elon Musk invested about $28,000, equivalent to a much larger amount in today's prices, in his son's startup and provided additional funding in the early stages of the company's development. It is important to note that Elon's complicated relationship with his father, which he often mentions in interviews, does not negate the fact of significant financial support from him. The psychological traumas of childhood associated with his father's harsh character coexisted with the material well-being and privileged position of the family in the apartheid society of South Africa. Creating the myth of a self-made man became part of a carefully thought-out PR strategy aimed at shaping the image of an entrepreneurial genius who achieved success solely due to his own abilities. However, documentary evidence and recollections of people who knew the Musk family paint a different picture. The story of a talented person who had significant starting advantages and the support of a wealthy family. This does not diminish Elon Musk's entrepreneurial abilities and innovative thinking, but helps to understand the real context of his formation as a businessman. His success is based not only on personal talent and hard work, but also on a solid foundation of privileged origin and significant financial resources available from an early age. Elon Musk's further path was characterized by the founding of a number of revolutionary companies, which, despite their technological achievements, became known for scandals and controversial practices. The PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, and other projects he created, on the one hand, changed the technological landscape of the 21st century, and on the other hand, gave rise to a series of high-profile scandals in the shadow of the loud political battles and technological achievements of Elon Musk's companies. A systemic crisis of labor relations is unfolding, characterized by massive violations of workers' rights, the creation of a toxic work environment, and ignoring basic labor safety standards. The U.S. National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, has found numerous violations in all of Musk's key companies, SpaceX, Tesla, and Twitter X. The most revealing case was the illegal dismissal of 8 SpaceX employees who dared to criticize their manager's behavior. The open letter that caused their dismissal exposed the discrepancy between Musk's public statements and corporate policy on diversity and professional ethics. Particular attention was drawn to his provocative tweets of a sexual nature, which created an atmosphere of disrespect and discrimination, especially towards female employees. According to Deborah Lawrence, one of the fired employees, a toxic culture has formed at SpaceX, where sexual harassment is not only tolerated but actually normalized. The company responded to criticism aggressively, interrogating employees, exerting psychological pressure, and resorting to direct threats of dismissal against those who dared to express disagreement. A characteristic feature of Musk's management style is the creation of an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. Employees are constantly under the threat of dismissal, which is used as a tool for control and suppression of any criticism or disagreement. This practice leads to high staff turnover and the loss of valuable specialists. The NLRB investigation revealed a systematic violation of workers' right to unite and collectively protect their interests. Musk's companies actively oppose the creation of trade unions, using various methods of pressure, from direct threats to sophisticated forms of discrimination against inconvenient employees. Particularly dangerous is the practice of concealing occupational safety issues. Tesla has recorded cases where management deliberately ignored warnings about dangerous working conditions, leading to serious incidents. Employees who tried to draw attention to these problems were subjected to harassment and dismissal. Against the backdrop of the presidential campaign and Trump's victory, these systemic violations of labor law faded into the background in the media space. However, the scale of the problem continues to grow. Labor law experts note that known cases may be just the tip of the iceberg, given the strict confidentiality system and employee intimidation. Particular concern is raised by the practice of concluding mandatory non-disclosure agreements, which effectively deprive employees of the opportunity to publicly speak about violations of their rights. This creates a situation where the real scale of the problem remains hidden from the public and regulatory authorities. SpaceX has recorded cases of violations of federal regulations regarding working hours and rest, especially during periods of preparation for launches. Employees are forced to work under conditions of excessive stress and physical exhaustion, which increases the risk of accidents and injuries. The culture of toxic masculinity encouraged by Musk's company leadership creates particularly difficult conditions for female employees. Documented cases of sexual harassment often go without proper response, and victims face further discrimination and pressure. Systematic neglect of occupational health and safety standards has led to the creation of a dangerous work environment in all of Musk's companies. The situation is particularly critical at Tesla's production sites, where workers regularly face injury risks due to non-compliance with basic safety standards. It is noteworthy that Musk's companies actively oppose investigations by regulatory authorities, using teams of highly paid lawyers to delay processes and minimize liability. This creates an atmosphere of impunity and encourages further violations of labor law. Against the backdrop of political success and appointment to a high government position, there is a risk that Musk will receive additional leverage to counter investigations into labor law violations. His influence on the policymaking of the new administration may lead to the weakening of worker protection mechanisms at the federal level. Thus, behind the facade of technological innovations and ambitious projects lies a systematic violation of basic workers' rights, the creation of dangerous working conditions, and the cultivation of a toxic work environment. This situation requires immediate intervention by regulatory authorities and the strengthening of labor rights protection mechanisms. In the period from 2019 to 2022, Tesla found itself at the epicenter of a massive scandal related to user privacy violations. According to Reuters, which is based on the testimonies of more than 10 former company employees, the cameras built into Tesla cars, designed to assist the driver, were systematically used for unauthorized collection of personal data. The video surveillance systems, which the manufacturer claimed were designed from scratch to ensure confidentiality, turned into a tool for mass surveillance. Company employees actively shared video and photo materials recorded by Tesla car cameras through internal communication channels. The content ranged from curious incidents to outright shocking events. The investigation revealed the systematic nature of privacy violations. Employees had access to intimate moments of Tesla owners' lives, including cases of driving without clothes and personal moments in garages. A particularly disturbing fact was the recording of a tragic accident where a child was hit at high speed in a residential area. These materials were actively distributed within the company, creating an atmosphere of impunity and disregard for customer privacy. Tesla's technical infrastructure allowed the collection of significantly more data than was necessary for the functioning of the driver assistance systems. Special software made it possible to determine the geolocation of recordings, potentially revealing owners' home addresses. Moreover, the cameras continued recording even when the cars were parked and turned off, turning them into means of constant surveillance. A paradoxical twist was that Elon Musk himself suffered from these violations. Company employees gained access to a video of his unique Lotus Esprit submarine car, purchased for nearly $1 million. This car, which was used in the filming of the 1977 James Bond movie, The Spy Who Loved Me, was captured by Tesla cameras without the owner's knowledge. The international reaction to the scandal was swift and harsh. The Chinese authorities banned Tesla cars from accessing certain strategic facilities and government districts due to concerns about unauthorized filming. European regulators launched their own investigations, focusing on the compliance of Tesla's practices with personal data protection legislation. Particular attention was drawn to the investigation by the Dutch Data Protection Authority, DPA, regarding the Sentry Mode feature. This mode, designed to protect the car, actually turned into a tool for monitoring the environment and people. Regulators found numerous privacy violations and potential data security risks. The company's attempts to protect its reputation through statements about the anonymity of recordings and their separation from specific users proved unconvincing. Former employees described in detail how easy it was to identify owners through a combination of geodata, recording times, and other metadata. The system that was supposed to protect privacy actually created detailed user profiles. Tesla management's reaction to the scandal was minimal. The company's top managers refused to comment, limiting themselves to formal statements about improving security systems. The introduction of warning signals, such as flashing lights when recording is activated, seems an insufficient measure to protect privacy. Unfortunately, this is not the only area where Musk has used his influence. Elon Musk's impact on the cryptocurrency market has become one of the most striking examples of how a personality with a huge social media presence can manipulate an entire financial sector. Starting from 2020, Musk's tweets and public statements have repeatedly caused large-scale fluctuations in the prices of various cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin and Dogecoin. The most revealing case occurred in early 2021 when Tesla announced a $1.5 billion investment in Bitcoin and plans to accept the cryptocurrency as payment for electric vehicles. This statement provoked a rapid rise in the price of Bitcoin to record levels. However, a few months later, Musk abruptly changed his position, announcing the suspension of Bitcoin acceptance due to the environmental problems of mining. This led to a market crash and the loss of hundreds of billions of dollars in capitalization. Particular attention is drawn to the story of Dogecoin, a cryptocurrency that was originally created as a joke. Musk's regular tweets about Doge led to sharp jumps in price, sometimes by hundreds of % within a few hours. He called himself the Doge Father and promised to send Dogecoin to the moon. Investigations showed that before each such tweet, there was increased activity of large wallets, indicating possible insider trading. In 2021, a $258 billion class action lawsuit was filed against Musk, accusing him of creating a financial pyramid around Dogecoin. The plaintiffs claimed that Musk deliberately inflated the value of the cryptocurrency, knowing about its lack of intrinsic value, and then took advantage of the price drop for his own enrichment. Analysis of transactions shows a complex network of interconnected wallets that became active immediately before Musk's public statements about cryptocurrencies. Experts note the similarity of patterns with classic pump and dump schemes. where artificially created hype is used to manipulate asset prices. A telling case is that of the Baby Doge token, when a single tweet from Musk led to an 800% increase in its value within 24 hours. Further investigation revealed links between large token holders and Musk's inner circle, raising suspicions of coordinated manipulative actions. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) has repeatedly expressed concern about Musk's influence on the cryptocurrency market. The Commission's internal documents indicate an investigation into possible violations of trading rules and market manipulation. Particular attention was paid to the coordination of actions between Tesla, SpaceX, and Musk's personal investments in cryptocurrencies. In 2023, evidence emerged that Musk's companies used complex schemes to conceal the actual volume of cryptocurrency transactions. Large-scale transactions were conducted through a network of shell companies and offshore accounts, coinciding with Musk's public statements about various cryptocurrencies. The X platform, formerly Twitter, acquired by Musk, plays a special role in the manipulations. The platform's algorithms ensure maximum dissemination of his statements about cryptocurrencies, creating artificial hype and panic in the market. Studies show that Musk's tweets about cryptocurrencies receive disproportionately high reach compared to his other messages. Technical analysis of market data demonstrates a clear correlation between Musk's activity on social media and trading volumes on cryptocurrency exchanges. A few hours before his public statements, an anomalous increase in positions in certain tokens is observed, indicating information leakage and coordinated actions of major players. Financial experts note that Musk's influence on the cryptocurrency market sets a dangerous precedent, where the personal opinion of one person can lead to multi-billion-dollar market fluctuations. This undermines trust in cryptocurrencies as an asset class and creates risks for small investors, who often fall victim to manipulations. Investigations by journalists have revealed the existence of coordination groups that track Musk's activity and prepare massive trading operations before his expected statements. These groups use complex algorithms and bots for instant response to new tweets, amplifying the effect of manipulations. The amount of investor losses from Musk's manipulations in the cryptocurrency market is estimated at tens of billions of dollars. At the same time, the lack of clear regulation of the cryptocurrency market complicates holding anyone accountable for such manipulations, creating an environment of impunity for large players. But this is not the main danger that the world's richest person can pose. The appointment of Elon Musk as co-chair of the new Department of Government Efficiency in the administration of Donald Trump marked the beginning of an unprecedented transformation of the American political system. According to an investigation by NBC News and other leading media outlets, the technological magnate's influence on shaping the future administration is already far beyond any official powers, setting a threatening precedent for U.S. democratic institutions. Musk's financial involvement in Trump's election campaign reached unprecedented levels. The officially declared $200 million in direct investment is just the tip of the iceberg. A large-scale scheme of financial influence on the electoral process is being implemented through a network of controlled organizations, including America PAC. Particular attention is drawn to the scandalous mechanism of daily raffles of $1 million among Pennsylvania voters, a stake critical for victory in the presidential election. The decision of the Philadelphia court, which allowed the continuation of this practice despite obvious signs of voter bribery, raises serious questions about the independence of the judicial system. The arguments of Musk's lawyers that the raffles are not a lottery, but represent a reward for participation in political activities demonstrate a sophisticated approach to circumventing electoral legislation. It is telling that the judge did not even provide a detailed justification for his decision, promising to publish it later. Musk's almost constant presence at Mar-a-Lago after the election is a particular concern. According to insiders from Trump's inner circle, the billionaire has effectively taken control of the process of forming the future administration. His participation in top-level confidential conversations, including communication with foreign leaders, creates an unprecedented situation where a private individual without official status gains access to strategic information of national importance. Musk's international connections pose a separate threat to U.S. national security. His business interests in China, where Tesla has huge production facilities, create a potential conflict of interest at the highest state level. The Chinese authorities have powerful leverage over Musk's business, which can be used to pressure American politics. A similar situation is developing with his ties to Russia, especially in the context of the space industry and SpaceX. Musk's attempts to create a parallel center of power within the future administration are manifested in the formation of his own team of loyal individuals. The appointment of Fox News host Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense is just one example of the personnel policy being pursued in the interests of the technological magnate. At the same time, Musk is actively promoting his people to key positions in various government agencies, creating a network of officials loyal to him. A critically important aspect is Musk's control over the social network X, formerly Twitter. This platform has turned into a powerful tool of political influence, capable of manipulating public opinion and spreading beneficial narratives. Algorithmic manipulations with content can significantly influence the perception of political events by millions of Americans. The creation of a new Department of Government Efficiency under the leadership of Musk and Ramaswamy opens up opportunities for a radical restructuring of the federal management system. The established deadline of July 4th, 2026, creates artificial pressure for the accelerated implementation of changes that could destabilize the state apparatus. The lack of public administration experience in both department heads only increases the risks of ill-considered decisions. The collection of voter personal data through the mechanisms of America PAC poses a particular danger. Under the pretext of signing petitions to protect constitutional rights, a large-scale database is being formed that can be used for political manipulation and targeted influence on voters. The technological capabilities of Musk's companies allow for deep analysis of this information. Musk's behavior on the Trump team is characterized by an outright disregard for traditional protocols and subordination. His attempts to take credit for Trump's victory and publicly boast about his role create tension within the team. Particularly indicative is the disregard for the principle of remaining invisible, which is critically important for working in Trump's entourage. The potential conflict between Musk and Trump can have serious consequences for the political stability of the United States. Known for his impulsiveness and intolerance of competition, Trump may react sharply to Musk's attempts to take over some of his powers and attention. Such a confrontation could paralyze the administration's work at a critically important stage of forming a new government. The financial schemes implemented through America PAC demonstrate a systematic approach to circumventing electoral legislation. The daily raffles of $1 million are only the visible part of a large-scale operation to influence voters. According to investigations, significant sums are channeled through a network of shell organizations and offshore companies, making it difficult to track the real scale of financing. The international aspect of Musk's activities creates additional risks. His companies have complex financial ties with Chinese state banks, Russian space programs, and other potentially problematic partners. Access to U.S. state secrets, combined with such ties, creates serious threats to national security. Musk's influence on shaping the political agenda through his control over X and other media resources allows him to create favorable narratives and manipulate public opinion. His ability to quickly mobilize millions of followers to support certain initiatives creates a powerful tool for political pressure. Musk's attempts to influence U.S. foreign policy are of particular concern. His unauthorized participation in negotiations with foreign leaders, including the president of Ukraine, demonstrates a dangerous trend toward the privatization of diplomacy. The lack of official status does not prevent him from promoting his own vision of international relations. The appointment of people loyal to Musk personally, rather than to Trump or the Republican Party, to key positions creates the risk of forming a shadow government within the official administration. This can lead to paralysis of decision-making and conflicts between different influence groups. Musk actively uses his technological experience to promote radical changes in government. His ideas for optimizing government processes can lead to the destruction of important control and balance mechanisms in the system of power. The lack of understanding of the specifics of public administration is compensated by excessive self-confidence. The situation is complicated by the fact that traditional restraining mechanisms for such influence are proving ineffective. The judicial system demonstrates an inability to resist financial pressure, and political institutions have no experience in countering such a specific combination of technological, media, and financial power. All this creates an unprecedented threat to American democracy, where a private individual, guided by his own interests and ambitions, gets the opportunity to significantly influence public policy without proper democratic control and accountability. The end of 2022 was a turning point in relations between technology magnate Elon Musk and the Russian authorities. According to the Wall Street Journal, this was when regular contacts between Musk and Vladimir Putin were established, which continue to this day. These meetings, which were carefully hidden from the public, became a key factor in the sharp change in the position of the SpaceX founder regarding the Russian-Ukrainian war. Initially, Musk positioned himself as a supporter of Ukraine, providing hundreds of Starlink terminals to ensure critical communication. However, behind the scenes, another story was unfolding. Unnamed sources in intelligence circles report close cooperation between Musk and the Kremlin leadership, rooted in the early days of SpaceX. Putin personally facilitated the company's acquisition of its first rockets for testing, effectively providing critical support for Musk's space program at the stage of its formation. High-ranking Russian officials, including Putin's chief of staff Sergei Kiriyenko, regularly contacted Musk. These meetings covered a wide range of issues, from personal topics to geopolitical strategies. Particular attention was paid to discussing the situation in Ukraine and the role of Starlink technology in the conflict. In the fall of 2022, a landmark event took place. Musk publicly presented a peace plan for Ukraine, which envisioned an actual capitulation to Russian demands. The plan included a demand for Ukrainian neutrality and recognition of Crimea as Russian territory. Political scientist Ian Bremmer later revealed that this was preceded by direct communication between Musk and Putin, where the Kremlin's red lines were discussed, including the threat of a nuclear strike in the event of an attempt to return Crimea. Russian influence became apparent in the restrictions imposed on the use of Starlink. Ukraine was banned from using terminals to attack the Russian fleet in an offensive operations. These decisions coincided with increased pressure from the Kremlin, demonstrating a direct correlation between Russian influence and Musk's actions. At the end of 2023, relations reached a new level when Putin personally appealed to Musk with a request not to activate Starlink terminals in Taiwan, demonstrating coordination with the Chinese authorities. This confirmed the depth of the Kremlin's influence on the decisions of the technology magnate. In early 2024, Musk made a resonant statement about the impossibility of defeating Putin in the war, effectively opposing further support for Ukraine. This position contrasted sharply with his initial support for the Ukrainian cause, causing concern in Western government circles. The American administration is particularly alarmed by Musk's access to classified U.S. information through SpaceX's government contracts, against the backdrop of his regular contacts with a hostile state. At the same time, many high-ranking White House officials remained unaware of these ties, which indicates a high level of secrecy in communications. Anonymous sources in journalistic circles claim the existence of documents confirming Putin's early involvement in the development of SpaceX. According to this data, the Russian authorities not only provided access to rocket technology, but also ensured the necessary permits and technical support at a critical stage of the company's development. This support could have become the basis for Musk's further loyalty to Kremlin interests. The change in Musk's rhetoric regarding the war in Ukraine demonstrates a clear correlation with the intensity of his contacts with the Russian authorities. His public statements increasingly reflect the narratives of Kremlin propaganda, creating the impression of a coordinated information campaign. A series of high-profile scandals related to sexual harassment in Elon Musk's companies have revealed the systemic nature of violations and the toxic corporate culture that has formed under his leadership. According to an investigation by the Wall Street Journal, based on court documents and testimonies of former employees, Musk personally participated in creating a hostile work environment and used his position to pressure subordinate women. A particularly revealing case was that of a SpaceX intern who was 20 years younger than Musk. Having met her during her college studies, when she approached with suggestions for improving the company, Musk used his official position to establish a personal relationship. After an intimate encounter, he continued to exert pressure, regularly sending messages and persistently inviting her to his mansion in Los Angeles, creating intolerable conditions for professional activity. Another high-profile case concerns a SpaceX flight attendant whom Musk offered to buy a horse in exchange for sexual services. According to the woman's testimony, after her refusal, the company significantly reduced her work shifts, which was effectively a form of punishment. The situation ended with the payment of $250,000 in compensation on the condition of signing a non-disclosure agreement. The systemic nature of the problem is confirmed by a lawsuit filed by 8 former SpaceX employees in a California court, accusing Musk not only of sexual harassment, but also of creating a toxic work environment filled with sexism and discrimination against the LGBTQ+ community. According to the statement of claim, Musk deliberately posted obscene sexual photographs in the workplace, spread offensive memes, and made derogatory comments. Particular attention is drawn to the case of an employee who left SpaceX in 2013 after Musk offered to have his children. During negotiations with the company's management about her dismissal, she revealed details of this unacceptable pressure, which indicates the long-term nature of the problem. Musk has become a symbol of both the technological progress of the 21st century and its dark side, where innovation is often achieved at the cost of human rights violations, privacy, and democratic principles. His story serves as a warning about the danger of excessive concentration of power in the hands of technological magnates and the need to strengthen democratic control over their activities. If you like this video, I suggest watching my other investigations where it gets even more interesting.